Spider-Man fans, swing on over here because you're not going to want to miss this. Everyone, please give a big, huge San Diego Comic-Con welcome to the writer behind Amazing Spider-Man, ZEB the Zamboni. Whoa! How does it feel to continue now 20 plus years writing Spider-Man stories?
It's an honor and a privilege, and it's weird to know that you're at the pinnacle of what you'll do in the industry, because it won't get better than this. Because it won't get better than this. Because it won't get better than this.
You serious?
All right, let's do this one last time.
There had been, sort of a suggested 6 months of him just being depressed and not doing too much Spider-Manning, everyone being upset with him, and him not being in a mood to mend fences.
Real quick, can you tease about Kamala's role in this series coming up?
She will play a big part in Dark Web, and then we have big plans for her in the second year of Amazing Spider-Man.
It finally feels like it's all about to go wrong for Norman in that last page.
Yeah, he's having a hard time, and I think that was the challenge. Can we get it to a place where not only is it surprising if he does go back, but people are bummed?
Yeah, so we have Ben Reilly, who has gone to the villainous side as Chasm, and he's coming back for a little bit of revenge on Peter Parker.
He hated me with a passion. This is starting to sound like a bad comic book plot. It gets worse.
What are you most excited for fans to see in upcoming issues of Amazing Spider-Man?
How Spider-Man gets in his bad mood at the beginning of Spider-Man's first hunt, I really am excited for people to see.
And now it's just, how does everything we've set up play out? And that is always really fun, because you have just a bunch of balls in the air.
Oh no, I didn't get to play the full video. The video has I cut it off too early. Let's play it again because maybe some people didn't see it, but let's play that again because I put a lot of time and effort into that, and yeah, there's an ending to it.
Spider-Man fans, swing on over here because you're not going to want to miss this. Everyone, please give a big, huge San Diego Comic-Con welcome to the writer behind Amazing Spider-Man, ZEB the Zamboni. Whoa! How does it feel to continue now 20 plus years writing Spider-Man stories?
It's an honor and a privilege, and it's weird to know that you're at the pinnacle of what you'll do in the industry, because it won't get better than this. Because it won't get better than this. Because it won't get better than this.
You serious?
All right, let's do this one last time.
There had been, sort of a suggested 6 months of him just being depressed and not doing too much Spider-Manning, everyone being upset with him, and him not being in a mood to mend fences.
Real quick, can you tease about Kamala's role in this series coming up?
She will play a big part in Dark Web, and then we have big plans for her in the second year of Amazing Spider-Man.
It finally feels like it's all about to go wrong for Norman in that last page.
Yeah, he's having a hard time, and I think that was the challenge. Can we get it to a place where not only is it surprising if he does go back, but people are bummed?
Yeah, so we have Ben Reilly, who has gone to the villainous side as Chasm, and he's coming back for a little bit of revenge on Peter Parker.
He hated me with a passion. This is starting to sound like a bad comic book plot. It gets worse.
What are you most excited for fans to see in upcoming issues of Amazing Spider-Man?
How Spider-Man gets in his bad mood at the beginning of Spider-Man's first hunt, I really am excited for people to see.
And now it's just, how does everything we've set up play out? And that is always really fun because you have just a bunch of balls in the air, and it's fun to see how many of them you can land and stick the landing on.
Wait! I want you to get out of this office right now.
I'm sorry, Zeb.
No way.
You brought
no
it on
way.
You brought it on yourself.
I don't want you here.
I'm so
Out.
sorry, George. I didn't think it would go like this.
Out.
Ted, I got your voucher.
Out! There.
I'm sorry about that. I'm so sorry. We'll have him like burned and well,
I don't even know who that guy is.
Free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
There, how about that? That way we could have watched it all. And now, of course, during that rewatch, my camera went out of focus. But you know what? That's the kind of boomer-ass quality you expect here at The Good, The Mab, The Ugly, which you are watching right now because it is Friday evening and we are live. So, hello everyone out there. I am, of course, your host, Mav, Spencer, whatever you want to call me. And yes, guys, in case you couldn't tell from the thumbnail, from the intro video, from the headline to this stream, we are finally done with, honestly, arguably, the worst Spider-Man run maybe since One More Day, since Joe Quesada had his little 4-issue run. And there, I mean, we can even dissect that. I think there's an argument to be made that this was worse. So, yes, welcome to the ZEB Wells is gone off of Amazing Spider-Man. We are finally maybe going to get better stories live stream here. I am happy to be with you guys tonight because, yes, if you couldn't tell from the fact that I made that video in the last like 2 or 3 hours, and if you haven't watched this stream before, I have been covering this run pretty much since it started, and it has just been, for lack of a better term, I'm not even monetized. Who cares? This run has been dog shit. It's just been the worst thing I think I've ever read out of Western comics in a long time. It just completely destroyed everybody's character who's even remotely surrounded to Peter Parker. So tonight we'll be breaking down all of that and, of course, anything else you guys want to talk about because that's what we're here for. We're here to talk with you guys, get your weekends off right because we spend all week mucking around in the worst things that pop culture and entertainment has to offer us, like Zeb Wells' Spider-Man. And we owe it to ourselves to have some fun. Remember that it's not all doom and gloom. And just be happy that Zeb Wells is gone from Spider-Man. So yeah, guys, that video, I threw it together between, in just a few hours. And I found a bunch of Zeb Wells Spider-Man clips. And I'm not sure if it came across, but the point of that video was to highlight, here's everything Zeb Wells bragged about, that this was going to be the best thing about his run. And here's how it actually turned out. Obviously, you saw the tease of Kamala being a really big part of the story, and then she just dies after 14 pages total in the run. You have Chasm, who we will get into. You have the Mary Jane and Paul stuff. It's just, I want to put the question to you guys. I know I have some watchers right now that are live with us, and I know I have some people who watch in the VOD, in the replay. Did you guys find anything, even being extremely like generous, was there anything in Zeb Wells' run that you guys went, it's not bad, it's okay, it wasn't offensive? I'm not going to ask if you thought anything was good, but is there anything where you guys were like, that's not that bad? I'm going to be honest, guys, we'll get into it. We'll talk about it as soon as I say hello to everybody. So get your thoughts out. If you're watching in the VOD, leave a comment. I will definitely reply to it, like it, whatever you need to know that I see you guys. So before we get into the absolute disaster that was Amazing Spider-Man Volume 6, I want to say hello to everyone. Now, you're not going to believe this, especially if you watched Foil Variant last night, but today, when I was getting the stream ready, I had all of the windows open. Everything was flowing perfectly. I had the chat open like 5 minutes before I put out the announcement, so I could have highlighted all of your chats. And then my camera crashed for no reason, so I had to restart OBS. So I'm not going to be able to highlight all of your comments, but obviously, as you guys can see over here, they're all here. So starting from the top, we have, speaking of foil variant, which you guys can catch Thursday nights at, God, Andrew, when do we even go live? 4 o'clock Pacific time, 7 o'clock, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Do your own math from there. It's been 2 weeks since Andrew and I had a foil variant. We had our first episode last night after taking a little break, and both of us are still like, how does this work? How does that happen? What time do we go on? So Andrew is here saying, look at this homosexual. Exactly, look at me. This is the gayest stream on YouTube. That is why we are here tonight. It's Pride Night every night here at this stream. Let's see. Corey is here saying, I'm here to eat my dinner and call Mav gay, and I'm all out of dinner. Well, guess what? Andrew beat you to it. You're going to have to find a new shtick. Zero, what is up? Or aside from that, hey, Corey, how's it going, buddy? Zero is here. Punk is here. He says, finished watching Madam Web on Netflix 10 minutes ago. It wasn't any good. Crazy thing is that I never got angry while I was watching it. So we've talked about Madam Web here on this show before. For those of you who are more recent viewers, when there are movies or television series that come out that warrant our attention here, I do dedicate full Good Mav Ugly streams to breaking down the video, going through everything. And so we did that for Madam Web back in the day, and it is not good. It is completely written almost by like an algorithm trained only by boomer like executives. Like the best way I put it, or the way I consider it, is, do you guys remember a couple years ago when the big Sony leak happened and all those emails came out between Amy Pascal and a bunch of different producers over at Sony regarding what they wanted Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man to be like, how they wanted him to be all cool and relatable. He has an Instagram page where he talks to people. He says, what's up? Like all of that kind of like, this is what the kids do. That's what Madam Web feels like, just through and through and through. And I wish I could say that I never got angry during that movie. I wish I could say that. But that movie makes me exceptionally angry because in the lead up to that film's release, all of the marketing, from the promotional posters to the trailers to the merchandise to the like promotional cups at all the fast food places, all of it centered on the girls in their actual Spider-Woman costumes. So you'd have Julia Carpenter, Spider-Woman, Maddie Franklin, Spider-Woman, and then Aranya as, I guess, probably Spider-Girl. Well, technically in the movie she's in her Aranya form. But that's what they banked the entire movie on. And now, I'm not the biggest fan. Like, I like Julia Carpenter a lot. She's my favorite Spider-Woman. I also really, really like Aranya as a character. Well, not what they're doing with her now with the whole web of destiny. I'm in charge of it. But just when she was like mystical spider girl with the weird tech arm. Like, I really liked that. I even liked when she was Spider-Girl. I'll give her that. So I wasn't going into Madam Web expecting this to be a great movie, but I went, all right, at the very, very, very least, I'm going to be able to see like a comic accurate Julia Carpenter, right? Because that Sydney Sweeney's costume was on point. I'm going to get to see a live action Aranya, who was close but had some differences. And then, yeah, race swap Maddie Franklin. I don't really care about that, but she had the cool spider arms. Like, I love that. That's one of my favorite power sets, like the Iron Spider sort of like extra spider arm things. I love that. So she was rocking that in the movie. And I was like, all right, at the very least, I'll get some level of entertainment out of seeing the girls in their costume. That'll be cool. That entire thing the entire sequence of them in their costumes, lasts for less than 1 minute of screen time. Like, I could play it as my intro for every stream from here on out, and it would not get dinged because it's too low of a time for it to ding. And it was a flash forward to an event that maybe might happen. So it's not even a real thing. It was all just sort of, for lack of a better term, smoke and mirrors. And I remember at that moment when the flashback ends and I'm like, that's it. I was pissed. There's even I went and I wrote an article on Bounding where I was like, Madam Web is the biggest bait and switch I've seen in forever. Because I was just like, I had to sit through that entire crappy ass movie about a D-list Spider-Man character that nobody cares about. And then the only thing I wanted to see that you guys told me was going to be there was nothing at all. Right? It's like going, oh yeah, I'm going to go to a party tonight. I got invited to a party. There's going to be an open bar. And you get to the open bar and it's like a 6-pack that somebody had in their trunk and they just brought in. It's like, yeah, okay, that's free beer, but it sucks and it's not what you promised and nobody would have expected this. So, yeah, Tevye. Yeah, Tevye brings up a good point. What did you expect? It's Sony. Sony at least has given okay designs for, like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man looked great. Obviously the Green Goblin, I really like that depiction of him. Sony's not always bad with their designs. It's just everything else, right? So that's why, I thought the movie was going to be the girls are under attack by Ezekiel. They, Madam Web finds them and they all have their powers and there's going to be some big fight at the end. I didn't expect it to be great, but again, just visual, cool, Julia Carpenter. None of that. Just none of that. So, yeah, I get, for the most part, I'm with you, Punk. It's not enough to get angry, but that particular part made me very, 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 very angry. Oh no, now we've been talking too much, so the chat scrolled a little bit forward. So, yes, guys, I see a bunch of reactions to the video edit. Yes, isn't that quote from Zeb Wells where he goes, this is, to know you're working on the pinnacle of what you're going to do in the industry. My jaw dropped when I heard him say that because come on, man. There's no way any of the stuff we're going to talk about, you really thought this was going to be the best thing you've done, right? I can tell you guys all what the actual best thing Zeb Wells has done, and it's not even close to anything he's done here, right? So we'll get into that. Don't worry. Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, thank you for the edit, the outro. It was a lot of fun to make, even though I did cut it really close down to the wire. Literally, that's why this stream started a little later tonight, because I was just making sure all the finishing touches were on. And then, of course, in good Mav Ugly fashion, I still managed to cut the Stream Deck queue a little short. But we're here now, and we're going forward. Let's see. Tevye says, oh, pardon me, hold on. Well, first, Meteor Advocate Timon says, hey, Spencer, I tried KFC. Not bad, but won't be buying again. Kinda meh. First of all, what up, buddy? Always a pleasure to see you, Timon. Second of all, yeah, I've never been the biggest fan of KFC. It is... So in America, it is probably the most well-known, widespread of the, fried chicken fast food joints. But there are others. There's, Popeyes. There's, Church's Chicken. Those are all better, in my opinion, for chicken. KFC's fine, but that's really all I stand at. I stop at, fine. They used to have a really good wrap type thing that I used to get all the time. That was just, chicken, tomato, some sauce, cheese, and lettuce. Nothing exciting, but I liked that a lot. But, yeah, so it's not, if you were, Timon, if somebody was like, you got to go to America to get KFC, I'd be like, no, that's crazy. That's ridiculous. So... yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I'll eat it if it's around, but I'm never going to, run out of my way to find it. So let's see. Punk says, I don't know who Zeb Wells is. Well, Punk, you are in for, I don't know if I could call that a treat, but you are in for some, a deep dive tonight. You're in for a ropes course on how not to write comic books, period. Exactly. Here we go. Andrew has the best summary. One of the absolute worst Spidey writers in history from everything I've heard, but then I didn't waste my time on it. I mean, you shouldn't. Spoiler alert, guys, 60 issues down, including, if you want to count all the, dark web tie-ins, the gang war tie-ins, probably somewhere closer to 70. But nothing here. There is nothing in this run that I think anybody will ever point to you need to go read this. This is an important thing. Other writers in the future might build on it, but you get nothing out of this run. Nothing happens. Okay, so Tevye's got one of the things that didn't quite offend her. It was probably maybe Gold Goblin, but even that's not saying much. Here's what I'll give Gold Goblin. I'm not again, I actually kind of like the design. It's pretty sleek, but as I sort of highlighted in the video, no, you don't pull that kind of the bad guy is good now plot with someone who is essentially Marvel's Joker, right? I think I speak for probably all of us here that the second they went, Norman's going good, all of us went, how long? Okay, how long? So when Zeb Wells is trying to be like, oh yeah, I want to make it surprising when he changes back, nobody will be surprised by that. All of us are waiting for that to like happen right now. Shinkai is here. What's up? Shinkai says, takes a special someone that makes a run where you genuinely feel bad for the character because they know it's only going down. Also, happy Friday. Happy Friday to you, buddy. And yeah, I think that if you guys have caught this show, if you've caught Foil Variant, you'll know that it is pain right now, just knowing that this book exists, that this is 616 Peter. I mean, go watch last night's episode of Foil Variant. Andrew and I talked about the new Ultimate Spider-Man, and you can just see like the lamentations in our faces when we're like, 616 is awful, 616 is terrible. We even went over the like Spider-Verse events and Spider-Boy. Like everything is awful for 616 Spider-Man right now, and it's not getting better. Well, maybe it will. Maybe now we're here, maybe it will. Duck is here. What's going on? He says, whoa, lots of skin showing today. Yep, it is hot again in Arizona, even though we are getting into the fall season. So even though the last couple streams I was able to wear a regular t-shirt, last night's Foil Variant and tonight's stream, it has just been way too hot. So I am back to rocking the tank top. Got my X-Aid, Kamen Rider tank top on. So at least I keep it thematic. Let's see. Oh, Duck says, I'm going out to dinner. However, down to play TCG tonight. I'll hit you up in Discord. Yeah, definitely hit me up. Timon says, Garfield's Spider-Man design sucks. Him and all his villains. See, no, I know, Timon, that you don't like a lot of newer stuff and you like your classics, but I really, really like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, his designs. I am a big fan of that first suit he designs, like the runner suit with the yellow eyes and stuff. To me, that is a good, like, I am making a suit. I've never made a suit. What do athletes wear? They wear running stuff. And it's like, that's cool. So yeah, a lot of the villain designs for Garfield, I think, were pretty miss. Electro, obviously, Lizard, Rhino, I guess, was fine, even though it was just, they didn't do anything with it. But I like the tank Rhino. That's all we really got, to be honest. So I don't really have more complaints outside of that. At least Electro looked better in No Way Home. But Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man, and Peter, that'll always be a winner for me. Hey, look at that. A rare compliment from Duck. Actually, this haircut looks good on you. Thanks, man. It's finally growing back in because I got it cut a couple weeks ago for the wedding I was at. And now I'm just lazy and letting it go back. Yeah, Andrew's got that. Golden Gobby has a solid design. Yeah, no, I like the design. It's just, again, it's on Norman. So I can't, I would have had more of it would have been more believable if you're trying to do Goblin Goes Good story and you used like Harry, because that is somebody I could believe Marvel will eventually, like, would let stay on a permanent hero path, but they're not going to do that with Norman. Norman's too big of a villain, like a too popular of a villain. So that they're going to always, just like anytime they do, oh, here's a good Joker or here's good Lex Luthor. Right? It's like, okay, they're good for now, but we all know that because it's such an ingrained piece of pop culture, you guys aren't going, and you're Western comic books, so you don't really move out, like you don't grow or at all. You'll always go back to the status quo. Yeah, I know Harry is gone, Tevye, but I was just saying, like, hypothetically, if you wanted to do that storyline, it would have made more sense to use someone like Harry than Norman. I know Harry's not around right now, so that wouldn't have worked, but yeah, just as a general. Yeah, I got to go to a big boy wedding. Not mine, of course. I'm sure that surprises nobody to know that I'm still deathly single. But it was a great time. One of my childhood best friends. We spent most of the entire time playing Magic. Oh, don't even get me started, Tevye. Tevye says, making Ben Reilly into Chasm was such a garbage story, and it drives me crazy that Marvel Comics won't have him go away. My friend, when we get into this latest issue, you will hear me lose my mind because in case you guys don't know out there, Ben is my favorite comic book character, period. Not Peter with the scarlet costume on, but I like Ben. So everything Wells has done this run has just been insulting, right? Like, that's why I used that clip from the animated series where Ben's like, he hates me. Because I'm like, there's no other explanation for why Wells just completely craps on everybody. Yeah, see, like, and this is true. Andrew's like, I don't even want Ben around, but I felt pain for his fans. Right, and like, I think that is the sign of absolutely terrible writing when everybody can go like, ooh, even though I don't like it, like, ooh, that was really, really, really bad. Oh, what is going on? What is up, Leon? Long time no see. Yeah, get a load of me indeed. I'll get a load of myself if I will. No, I'm kidding. That's kind of gross. But nice to see you, buddy. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Excited to be back on the show in a little bit, and I'll probably stop in on your stream later tonight because I always do. But yes, always a pleasure to see you, buddy. Tevya says, heck, my favorite comic character is Mayday Parker's Spider-Girl, and it drives me crazy she got destroyed in the Spider-Verse comics by Dan Slott. I'm not laughing at you, Tevya. I'm laughing because, like, I feel that too. I love the Spider-Girl series by DeFalco from the 90s and, like, the early 2000s. Fun fact, the only female character to lead her own series past 100 issues, which is absolutely bonkers, like straight issues. Which is like, that's awesome for her, but that shows her staying power. You'll be even more upset to know, Tevya, that they tried to like undo that in a recent comic, but they also kind of just like missed the point. So just quick detour. If you guys have read Spider-Girl, you'll sort of know that the entire premise is Peter is older now. He has lost a leg due to a fight in the past. Because he can't operate as Spider-Man anymore, he is now a detective on the NYPD, and Mayday is coming into her own. She's learning how to use her powers, da-da-da-da-da-da. Then she becomes Spider-Girl, and it's all, you know, so on and so forth. But in the recent comics, so they tried to bring back that universe and say, like, oh, look, everything's okay. But they made Peter Spider-Man again. Like, he's suiting up as Spider-Man again while Mayday is still there. And it's like, you guys don't understand what fans were complaining about, right? Like, it's very much it feels dismissive. Like, oh, we want to see Mayday again. We love the MC2 world. We want to see that family dynamic again. And so then Nick Lowe and the Spider editors go, oh, you want that world then? Fine, here, have your stupid world, the stupid Spider-Man as you know, Spider-Man again. Okay, and it's like, that's not what we were asking for, dude. Like, you're throwing a tantrum now. We just wanted to see more Mayday as normal Mayday. Oh yeah, Modern Marvel wouldn't be 100 straight. It would be like 6 gay issues and a cancellation notice. It's actually funny, Leon. We were talking about this last night, me and Andrew. And for those of you who don't read comics regularly, there's this new trend where back in the day, a miniseries used to be 6 issues minimum, right? They would say, hey, we're doing Spider-Man and Wolverine open a restaurant. 6-issue miniseries, pick it up. And you'd go, okay, I know that this is a 6-issue thing. We're good. Nowadays, a lot of times they'll be like, Spider-Man and Wolverine opening a restaurant. New series, pick up issue 1. We are kicking it off. Let's go, let's go. And you go, oh, this is a new ongoing. Okay, cool, let's check it out. And then the solicits for the next month for like issue 2 are like issue 2 of a 5-issue series. And it's like, you bastards didn't have any like support in this. You knew that this was going to fail. Yeah, so Tevya says, I know it's from Spider-Boy who's trying to introduce a new Spider-Girl, which is so bad and garbage. So, like, pause that, Tevya. Hold on. Right, like, I'm not against that. That could be a cool thing. It might be cool, Leon. Like, let's get this. It couldn't be any worse than any of the other Infinity comics that they currently put out or whatever, right? So, Tevya brings up that they are trying to introduce a new Spider-Girl to serve as sort of a ballast to the new Spider-Boy, which if you guys do not know the whole Spider-Boy saga, it is really dumb. Basically, Dan Slott has introduced the whole plot is like Spider-Man used to have a sidekick and they trained and he was awesome, and then something happened and he got erased from history and nobody remembers him, and now he's back. And it's another Dan Slott like, oh, look at me, I'm making an original character, adding another spider to a world with way too many goddamn spiders. Yes, exactly, might be cool. Must be has to be a pizzeria, but also it has to be a pizzeria with a bar. Oh, hell yeah, the signature drink would be called, like, web shooters. I would do a web shooter, like, in 100%. In 100%? What the hell? I would do a web shooter 100% in a heartbeat. What the hell is wrong with me today? So, yeah, Tevye, to this point, I want to just address this really quick because I have something to say on this because I actually had my let me get into this while I set up this other window. All right, cool. We are there. Let's jump over to our comic book talk window. Yay! So, first we'll talk about Spider-Boy, and then I'm going to talk about my stream buddy, and then we'll get into everything. Don't worry. Oh, dude, John, the whole John Kent thing, Bendis at DC, don't even get us started. That could be an entire stream on its own. Oh no, am I gone or something, guys? Did I drop? Is everything okay? Let's see. I'm hoping I'm okay. Are we back? Woo. Snikters. Okay, I like Snikters, but we have to have a very hard, like, sobriety limit on who can order this because that pronunciation can go south very, very, very fast. Kind of. Here, I'm gonna check what's going on the YouTube side. Let me see. Okay, think I'm back. I didn't know that I dropped for a second. That was weird. It must have been a YouTube thing because everything looks a-okay on my end. I'm just gonna check on the channel real quick because I see Tevye. Okay, cool. We look good. All right. Yeah, so just a sobriety limit. You can still order it. You can have somebody at the table order it, but if you've had like 3 drinks, we got to be careful because that's slurring your words can make that turn very dangerous very, very fast. So, as to what Tevye was talking about. So, yes, there is a new Spider-Girl being introduced into the Spider-Boy comic. Now, it is I'm with you. So, how do I frame this? I'm not a fan of the idea, but the way it actually plays out is different than what at least I expected. So I can at least give Slot like maybe not like a thumbs up, but like all right, you can play with this one. I'm still watching you, but maybe this will be one of those rare moments where Slot gets something right? So, yeah, exactly, Lon. Literally slurring your words. I love that. Yeah, so Tevye, this is the new Spider-Girl. We'll talk about it. Don't worry. Hold on. Yes, I agree. Spider people wearing sneakers is stupid. And then, yeah, the costume looks terrible. It's like they took the Marvel manga reverse and removed the manga aesthetic. Yeah, it's not a great costume. It's not a good look. It's very, very dumb. But I want to explain to you guys why it's not honestly as awful as we were all thinking. Because while you would think that this is a new spider person, right? Like, oh, great, we have another web slinger. It's a girl now. Great. That's not what is entirely happening here. So as I've been flashing through, you might have been able to see this Spider-Girl is actually a prodigy of Bullseye. So she's more of a like Bullseye junior kid Bullseye. And she's only dressing up as a spider to distract him. Like everything about it is just to sort of play mind games with him. Even though she's got the web, she's got all that, but she's not a spider person. Like those webs aren't just webs, they're barbed wire webs, right? So she's more of a mini Bullseye, and we know that Bullseye has dressed as like Daredevil before. He's dressed as Hawkeye before. So it's very much up his alley. So to that point, this isn't a Spider-Girl replacement. Like this is in no way going to be Mayday. This is not going to be a new Spider-Girl. I will ding Marvel for obviously marketing it that way because that's what everything was. All we saw in the lead up to this release was this cover. Was just this cover saying new Spider-Girl, and it was like, great, here we go. So It's not as bad as we all would have thought. I still don't care, right? Like, I don't care about anything Spider-Boy related. I just cannot bring myself to care about this character. But it is not as insulting as I think it would have been. And honestly, if this was being handled by a better writer, like if this was being handled by like a Hickman or a Mark Waid, I'd probably be more interested in it. But yeah, so this is luckily not a replacing Spider-Girl thing. This is just a let's sell a couple books, right? And she kills him. No, they don't. She doesn't kill anybody at the end. They're just they're captured. I went too far. See, they're captured, and Daredevil saves them, and then they get away. So yeah, nobody's dead there. Adamantium Alaskan cod with a side of cigar-shaped fries. Only if we could have a Spider logo or Spider logo and X logo nuggies for the kids. That's all. I'm just saying. I know how to get kids to eat their food, and it's by putting it in shapes of IP. Let's see. See, yeah, I mean, Tevya says Miles Morales in Into the Spider-Verse was 10 times better with shoes. See, I don't even agree with that. I am of the opinion where who said that up there? I'm actually with Timon here. I am very, very adamantly against Spider people wearing sneakers. I think like Miles wearing his sneakers is a cool aesthetic. Like, I really like the Air Jordan designs and everything. But again, guys, remember, you're supposed to be able to stick through walls using like the fine hairs on your fingertips. So that's why Peter always wears cloth or spandex, because that lets him, it presses up against his skin and it lets him stick out. So if you're wearing shoes, you're not sticking to a wall with your feet. Like, it's, yes, and I know a lot of people will go, oh, but what about in Amazing Fantasy 15 when Peter did it for the first time? And it's like, okay, sure, I'll give you that. He did it with like his loafers on, but every time since then, it's always been like, I have to grip with my fingertips and my toes. Like, that's what it is. So I'm never going to be a big fan of actual costumes with sneakers on them. If you draw fan art or you're doing something like that, like, I'm totally cool with sneakers. But yeah, if you're wearing them into battle, never doing it. I'm more worried about them wearing Snickers. That shit will melt. Not if you go fight crime in like New York winter, right? And that's what we're coming up on. So maybe this is the perfect time to deliver chocolate cheer. Volume Dealer is here. He asked, who is Spider-Boy? My buddy, you just missed our little talk about it, but essentially Spider-Boy is Dan Slott's latest attempt to ingratiate himself into the legacy of Spider-Man, of his story and everything. He is a former sidekick of Peter Parker, who everybody forgot existed, and he recently came back into being like a year ago. He's really, really stupid. So, like, Timon, that's not, like, I would even disagree with that. Timon says, Spider-Boy, Spider equivalent of Batmite, that bad. See, I think Batmite has his places, and there are some good stories with Batmite. Like, I will point to the World's Finest story. I think it's like issues 27 through 30, where Mxyzptlk and Batmite go and request help from Batman and Superman. This is more of, oh gosh, this is more, honestly, like, it's Marvel, right? This is the, like, Kamala Khanning, the Miles Moralesing. It's just more like, oh, we're introducing our own version of this character. Look, and it's really just here for Dan Slott to go, I made this. I'm part of Spider-Man now. Because, like I said, so I've talked about this before on this stream and on Foil Variant, but a big sign of a weak writer when they're trying to come on and, you know, do a big new run for a character or redefine a character or, you know, do something new with them, more often than not, and there are exceptions to this, don't get me wrong, there are exceptions that probably all of us know of, we can all think of, there's probably one or two or three we all know and love, but if a writer comes on and they immediately go back to a character's origin story and change something very, very big and drastic there, that's sort of a sign of like, oh, you are really trying too hard to be, like to put the spotlight on you, right? So like we've talked about this before, where a lot of the people who are writing right now in Hollywood, in comic books, in video games, they all thought that they would be, you know, the next Tarantino, the next Christopher Nolan. They all want to be filmmakers who, like everybody praises, who goes on all their interviews, who their name in lights, which is fine. It's a normal goal for probably like a lot of people, but when they don't get their way, when they don't get their movie made and they can't go work at MGM or whatever, and they end up getting a job at Marvel or something like this, they don't look at this like, I love this character, I want to work on this character. They see it as a stepping stone. Oh, I can write this comic book, and then this comic book job will get me in with Marvel TV, and then Marvel TV will give me a writing gig on an episode of Daredevil, and then I'll get a job over at who the fuck knows, right? I don't even know what goes on in TV anymore. But that's what a lot of them view this as, just stepping stones. And that's why when you see a lot of newer writers come in, especially ones that are more television or movie oriented, you get these very long, disconnected, almost like huffing their own farts narratives and soliloquies and just, you know, that kind of writing. We all know, like, it's not even, I hate the term. I'm not even saying woke writing. I'm just saying like preachy writing, if that, or very self-indulgent writing where it's lots of long boxes of like paragraphs of poetry of a character talking to themselves. And so because of that, they see, you know, how can I make a name here? How can I set myself up? How can I establish myself and my work here and start putting the spotlight on me? Well, there's no easier way to do that than going right back to a character's origin point. Because in any discussion of a character, you know, it'll always be there. If we're talking about Spider-Man, right? If I'm hanging out with Shinkai and Tevye and Leon or something at a bar and we're all chatting, and we're talking about Spider-Man, we all know that we all are familiar, even if we're not talking about it, with his origin story, which is Spider-Man got bit by a radioactive spider at a science experiment. Then he went to be a wrestler, and then he didn't stop a criminal, and the criminal shot Ben or Uncle Ben, and now he, you know, great power, great responsibility. In that scenario, we all know that. And so what this allows, if somebody goes back and changes their origin, now anytime anybody talks about that origin story, they get to be included in the conversation. So putting Spider-Boy aside for a second, do you guys remember Silk, the newer Spider-Woman? She's the Asian one I think she's Korean, they revealed during Original Sin that the way Cindy got her powers was she was bitten by the same radioactive spider as Peter at the same place, except nobody knew about her and everybody focused on Peter, right? So that's her origin story, courtesy of Dan Slott. And so now when people go, oh yeah, you know, Spider-Man, remember his origin story? Everybody knows where Peter Parker comes from. He kind of is like, forced his way in there. It's like, oh, you're talking about the origin. Don't forget what I did. Don't forget that it wasn't just one spider that bit, or the spider didn't just bite one person. It was two people. And so now we are forced forever to include them in that conversation. Even if we're not discussing Cindy, even if we're not necessarily discussing the origin story of Peter, we now have to like acknowledge that at least in continuity, this is a thing. And it's a very easy way for somebody to go, oh yeah, I just joined in here, but guess what? I'm part of Spider-Man's origin story now. I'm part of his history. You can't ignore me. A writer could come in and do a completely different, or just make a new villain, do a new storyline, do something like that. And admittedly, it's harder for something like that to endear itself to fans, or let me rephrase that. It's harder for something like that, a new story that's sort of just an author going out and telling a story. It's harder for that to become it's harder for that to be written into history. Somebody might go oh yeah, that was a really good run. I liked that. But they don't always have to talk about that run. You could be talking about something else. That could be just another story. But if you've worked on the origin, you always have to be in that discussion. And so that's what a lot of these writers are doing. Back to Spider-Boy, that's what Dan Slott is doing here with Spider-Boy. He's going, oh yeah, way before this ever happened, before any of these comics that you've all read, Spider-Man had a sidekick. And so now we have to go, oh yeah, in Spider-Man's early career, he was a kid, he was a crime fighter, he wasn't on the Avengers, and oh yeah, he had a sidekick. Like, that's, see what I mean? By retconning history to insert your things into pivotal moments like that, you force yourself into the conversation. And now, whether people want to or not, they have to acknowledge and they have to recognize your work. Again, great for you. You probably get a big ego boost from it, Dan Slott. But the rest of us just roll our eyes because we're like, this doesn't contribute anything. You're just trying too hard. The other example I sort of have on my head, because it happened in the last 2 weeks, is Nightwing. Or, sorry, not Nightwing, Batman. So the reason for that little mix-up there is that right now, the Detective Comics, with the All-In reboot for Marvel, All-In Detective Comics is being written by Tom Taylor, who just came off of Nightwing. That's where I got confused. But Taylor just joined Detective Comics, and the very first issue of his run, he reveals this twist in the very end that the reason Joe Chill was out on the streets and killed Martha and Thomas Wayne was because Thomas Wayne approved his release from Arkham Asylum like all those years ago. It doesn't add anything. It's very stupid. But guess what? Now when we talk about Bruce Wayne's origin, we have to talk about Tom Taylor. We have to say, oh yeah, but do you know why Joe Chill was out? Because of Thomas Wayne, blah, 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 blah. So anytime, and again, there are times when people can make retcons to origins or go back to earlier points in time and tell good stories like that, like the, oh, you didn't know I existed, or we hid this. There are ways to do it well, just like with most things in life. We are just not seeing that from 98% of the writers that control our fiction nowadays. So, I'm actually going to go backward a little bit because Tevye, I want to get to the first point you made last because it's a good jumping point. But yeah, Volume Dealer, it looks like a tick on his back. There's nothing good about his design. I think the only thing I would say I kind of like about Spider-Boy, because guys, if you've watched the show, you know me, I think it's very important to be able to be open and also acknowledge things that we do like in things, even if it's absolutely terrible, because that way we can help, give a better read of like, oh, what are fans looking for? What do you guys exactly want? And it shows that, we're not just shitting our pants all over the place every day at everything. And if you find some things you can like every once in a while, it keeps the blood pressure down, folks. Trust me. I don't need you guys having conniptins and passing out and dying before we hit like episode 100 here. All right. So, the one thing I do like about Spider-Boy is that his origin is that he is a boy who was like mixed with spider DNA by like a mad scientist. And so he has like, when he takes off his mask, he does have under his hair, he's got like 6 extra eyes, and he has like bearing fangs like in his mouth. So I like that. I like the more monstrous element to him. That's pretty much all he's got going for me, at least. So, hey, it is a Silky from Pokemon, right? Like a Silcoon. Is that what you're talking about? Because I definitely see that. So first Tevye's up saying, honestly, as original sin for Spider-Man, it's garbage. And frankly, if they wanted an original sin for Spider-Man, why not have him remember one more day? I'm right there with you, Tevye. It was a really stupid move for them to introduce Cindy and all of that crap with one more day, or with original sin. I genuinely did expect the thing that, because if you guys remember, the whole point of original sin was when the Watcher's eyeball exploded and it let out all the secrets into the world. That's where everybody like remembered a bunch of stuff or learned a bunch of stuff that they didn't know or they had forgotten. So I was right there with you. That would have been better, but no, just another person got bit. That was also that weird era of like Civil War II, Inhumans versus Avengers, or Inhumans versus X-Men, where like a lot of the events that Marvel did just didn't amount to anything except introducing new characters. There was no plot developments. There was no character growth. It was just like, hey, look, new event, new character. Aren't you guys so excited? Maybe he'll get a Disney Plus show, and then none of them ever do. Yeah, but the thing was that he had forgotten that Silk got bitten, which just like makes no sense whatsoever. So, yeah, Dan Slott did make Superior Spider-Man, which he tried to bring him back again, which went nowhere. I say this a lot on this show, or just in general. I love the concept of Superior Spider-Man. I thought that was a really good twist to have Ock sort of swap brains with Peter. The only time that concept was good, though, was when it was being written by literally anybody who wasn't Dan Slott. And in particular, a writer by the name of Christos Gage. He knows how to write that character. Dan Slott does not. Dan Slott had to rely a lot on the characters all being really stupid for his plot to work. And if you have to do that, you've already sort of lost the writing game, if you will. So this is what I wanted to get to. Tevye brings up, you know what's funny? Zeb Wells also wrote Deadpool and Wolverine, and that movie was fantastic, but his Spider-Man was a train wreck. So that is true. Zeb Wells did have a writing credit on Deadpool and Wolverine, but it's also important to remember that he was not the sole writer. He is not the sole writer for that movie. He was brought on about halfway through its production process to work on the script. Now, we don't know exactly what he worked on, but going off of his run on Amazing Spider-Man and how he just kept, oh, Peter and Mary Jane don't want to be together. Isn't this drama? Like, isn't this what everybody wants to see? I am pretty convinced that the main contribution Wells made to Deadpool and Wolverine was that entire subplot about him and Vanessa being broken up, because there's no reason for it in the movie. It doesn't add anything. Like, even because I know they bookend the movie with Wolverine going like, go talk to the girl or whatever, but like, there's no plot about her, right? It's just like Deadpool isn't feeling his best, so they broke up because he's like in a slump and he's not treating her right. Okay. None of his dimension hopping really had to do with her. So it's like, I'm very convinced, because that's what Zeb Wells loves writing. I'm pretty sure that all of his contribution was Vanessa related, which was the dumbest part of, like, one of the dumber parts of the movie. You didn't need to have them broken up and dating other people or whatever, right? He just redid his Paul storyline. But I want to clarify something else, because I found this out last night while doing my research for the video and getting all those clips in the beginning. So that's not Zeb Wells' only writing credit in the MCU. Now, if you guys remember, Jacob and I used to bring this up a lot when we were live reviewing the show and when it was we were talking about it more. But Zeb Wells was also a writer on She-Hulk, the Disney Plus MCU series. We didn't know, so that alone made me and Jacob laugh a lot. Like, of course, he was partly responsible for this disaster. But again, team of writers, he's not the only one. We didn't know specifically what he worked on. However, in all of these interviews, he reveals that he worked on probably the most, what's the word here? Like, the sloggiest. Okay, so he wrote the episode where Jen goes to the like supervillain therapy retreat, and they all have like their therapy session, and she's trying to like text or get a text from the guy that she slept with the night before. Like, that entire episode, which is just boring and nonsensical, and even for a show like that doesn't contribute anything. He wrote that one. And it's also funny because like that's Jacob's #1 least favorite episode. Like, he hates that episode outright. And of course, I'm like, I messaged him last night. I'm like, you know the guy who ruined Ben? Guess what else he did? So yeah, Zeb Wells, not a great writer when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I genuinely don't give him any credit for anything on Deadpool and Wolverine outside of the Vanessa stuff. I stand to be proven wrong on that. Maybe he'll give an interview later on where he says what exactly he wrote, but that's where I put my money right now. Right there. Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, Leon. Superior Spider-Man was amazing. All here, not slander, minus Dan Slott stuff. Like, that's the thing. I loved the costume. I loved the plot. I loved the entire idea of it. But it was just, when Dan Slott had his hands on the character, it went from, like, good. So basically, like, the way Dan Slott would write everything is he would go way too hard into it's Doc Ock inside Peter. So Peter would be acting like a straight jackass to like Mary Jane, Captain America, Wolverine, and not just like I'm grumpy, but like, don't talk to me, I'm better, I'm superior to you, right? It didn't work in that book, because you would think that if fucking like the X-Men or just anybody in the Marvel Universe, if they saw Spider-Man of all people going like, Breaking Bad, if you will, they would probably go, hey, somebody go get Jean Grey, somebody go get Quentin Quire, somebody go get any of the 9,000 telepaths that exist on this universe, this multiverse, whatever. Or go get one of those characters that like does empath powers. There are so many solutions to fixing that superior story or like to figuring out that it wasn't Peter. But Dan Slott just has everybody go, oh, Peter mean now. We don't like him. And it's like, really? Captain America's doing that? You're letting Captain America say, Peter's being a jerk. We don't like, let's maybe not hang out with him. Like, what the fuck are you doing here, Dan Slott? So, yeah, when Christos Gage got it, you got more of the like, I'm Peter Parker, but every now and then a little, a weird word would slip out or a weird idiom. Or he might be a little colder in one sentence than he was before. So it was subtle. But yeah, Dan Slott just blew, like, wrecking ball through it. Yep. He was definitely a part of the She-Hulk show and wrote that awful episode. Oh man, Punk, you might be the lone pilgrim in a foreign land here, because at least on my end, I did not like that show. I thought it was a giant waste, and I think at least from the people I know are here right now, like Timon and Leon and Tevye, I'm pretty sure they're going to be on the same wavelength there. Right, exactly. The telepaths in New York alone. And there's Tevye, too. Emma Frost, 2 seconds. Done. Didn't need any of that. Dude, go to Doctor Strange. Let him magic something up and go, oh, yeah, there's a different soul inside of Peter. It's not that hard. But Dan Slott doesn't really know how to write good things. Jay Lee, what's going on? My buddy, he says, you look different. I don't know what it is, though. It could be this new haircut of mine. No, I'm kidding. Guys, that made me so sad. So I'm actually bit of Mavlor for right now. But a couple weeks ago while working out, I hurt myself and I basically got a spinal sprain. So it's like really, really hard for me to walk. It's really painful, like even to sleep. And so for the last 2 weeks, I haven't been able to work out, and it's driving me bonkers. And like I can feel my muscles deflating, and I'm just like, I need to pick up heavy thing, put down even heavier things. Oh yeah, no, it was a huge heartbreak, Tevye, because yeah, She-Hulk's a great character. I love She-Hulk as a character. I even like Tatiana Maslany, like I do as an actress. But everything they did there was just the wrong move. The one thing I do like, and if Jacob is listening or if he pops in later, I know he won't make fun of me and he knows what I'm going to say. I liked Nikki, the She-Hulk's best friend, like the Indian girl or whatever. I really liked her. I really liked that actress. And yeah, I've seen that actress in some other stuff and she's pretty cool. Oh yeah, no, thanks Tevye. Yeah, luckily it's not like bones jutting out or sticking out or whatever, but it's just like I have to like huddle over. I have to like lay certain ways when I go down. It just sucks. I think she could have been a better. Here's the problem. I think she has the chops, and you could see some elements of a good She-Hulk performance there. Tatiana just did not have any material to work with. They made her the saddest, sappiest version of She-Hulk. And it's really, really, it shows. Here's the problem. She-Hulk as a character is confident. She is like, oh, that's the entire thing, right? Jen is sort of sheepish. She's, glasses girl. Nobody pays attention to her. But then she's She-Hulk. She's buxom. She's beautiful. Everybody's paying attention. She's strong. And she embraces that in the original Byrne run, right? Like she loves being confident. She uses that to advance her career as a lawyer. It really helps her. So that's her character, and a lot of the humor and stuff that works with She-Hulk is her being aware of how beautiful and how confident she is. Yeah, sometimes that means that somebody will catcall at her and she'll throw them into Venice Beach or whatever, right? Just whoomp. But other times it'll be like, oh yeah, I'm so confident. I randomly got asked to be a model in the background of this television movie, and then there's a bad guy there, and that's how they unfold. It's things like that. The TV She-Hulk was too much of your wishy-washy millennial, right? Like, I don't know. I know I can do this, but I don't know. I'm just so defeated. Everything is so tough. And it's like, that's not the She-Hulk I wanted to be here for, right? Like, to me, She-Hulk doesn't sit around waiting for a text from a guy. She would brush it off, maybe be mad about it when she got back, but and she would go confront him, but she's not listfully walking around all day looking for one bar of signal to text somebody back. It's just very bad characterization of her. There we go. She-Hulk is love. She-Hulk is life. Oh, Tehillim is here. What is up, buddy? Tehillim says, I recently finished the Netflix Gundam series Requiem for Vengeance. I have not started that yet. Let me know your thoughts. I've seen some things running around. I haven't delved into it. I was planning on it this weekend. Hopefully I have some time to do it, but we will see. Yeah, that was another thing too, right? Volume Dealer, she said cringy generic stuff like, you do you, boo. Stuff people said 5 years ago, but she's still saying it. Again, there is a big problem. So if you guys didn't know, Jessica Gao is the lead writer for She-Hulk. And if you go and you look up Jessica Gao's pedigree, or not pedigree, but her previous filmography prior to being tapped for Marvel, she wrote Robot Chicken with Zeb Wells. She wrote Rick and Morty. She was one of the writers on the Pickle Rick episode. And then she got her job on She-Hulk. So there is this clear, like Jacob and I bring it up all the time over on the 01 stream on Bounding, and we don't have an answer to it yet. We see the theory, but there's some pipeline that is like, there's a Hollywood pipeline of like Rick and Morty sitcom random television writers being shuttled right into Marvel in big leading positions, like main writers, like, for example, not just Jessica Gao, who worked on Robot Chicken and Rick and Morty. I bring this fact up all the time. I'm sure regular viewers here are sick of me bringing it up. But the original writer for the first two, or for the next two Avengers movies, so when it was Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, the first writer they tapped for that project, his credits prior to being given that, couple episodes of Rick and Morty, and 400 episodes or serving as a staff writer on Jimmy Fallon Tonight. That's who they decided they were going to bank their entire big multiverse saga crossover. This is our last chance to let people know that we are not completely fucking cooked as a franchise project, to a guy who wrote for Jimmy Fallon. It's either Fallon or Kimmel. It's one of those two. Neither one makes it better. There's no option I can give you guys there that's like, oh yeah, at least he wrote for him. It's all bad. So there was this weird pipeline. And to your point, Volume Dealer, that pipeline is full of people whose humor is very much like this. Very much, oh yeah, let's say what the kids are saying and get them back without realizing how fast culture moves. So, like, for example, by the time these writers get the phrase, like, you do you, boo, into their vernacular, it's already long outside of, like, colloquial use. Right? Like, imagine when we used to watch television as a kid and we would be watching a sitcom or something or a drama with our parents, and like randomly some kid might be like, oh, that was killer. We'd be like, that was weird. Like, yeah, we all use killer, but who's used killer in like ever? It's pretty much the equivalent of that. That's what I'm saying. They could have at least tried for a Conan writer. They could have gotten Conan himself. I know he's an actual gamer, right? We've seen all of his segments, which are like the best. But no, like, anybody would have been better, Leon. Dude, get you and me together, give us like a pile of like cocaine and like 7 bottles of vodka, and whatever awful scribbles we would have put out would have been 9,000 times better than anything that we've seen so much. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, Leon. Like, she would get like no text, do her like Hulk leaps back to New York, ding dong. What the hell, man? Like, is that all I was to you? And then he'd be like, oh, I was, and she'd be like, all right, whatever. And like crush his bird like feeder on the way out or something. Like, that is our She-Hulk. Oh yeah, not to Tatiana, honestly, like Tatiana, the cast, they're not to blame for this. It is 100% always the writers, always the producers, always the people who said we should put this in and not that in. Oh my god, That was so stupid. The version of Scar with like the hair that's like all the way up here. That's where his hairline starts. And like that to me was one of those very clear indicators of where Marvel just is now. Because yes, you might not like, maybe you're not the biggest Hulk fan, but there are Hulk fans out there. And Scar, while a newer character who doesn't get used that much, has a pretty sizable, I don't know if I could say fan base, but he's got fans. He's got people who would check out his stories, and everybody really likes that World War Hulk storyline. It's one of the most regularly touted, like, if we're getting a Hulk movie, do this one. Everybody wants it. So for She-Hulk to go, oh yeah, by the way, Scar, ha ha ha, and just use it as like a one-off joke, like that, I don't know how you take that as anything but like a giant, like, fuck you to your face. Because it's not even just like, oh, it's Scar now. It's like, oh, I went and I have a son. It's like, are you going to show us anything about World War Hulk? Any of your time? Who's the mom? What did you do on Scar? Like, no. It's just a really, really quick, easy joke. So, yeah, that was World War Hulk, Planet Hulk. It's all the same related storyline in my mind. One leads into the other. Can you say the version of Scar is scarring? I mean, that would be giving it too much credit that I would think about it and remember it for the rest of my life when I actively try to put it down in the, like, recesses of my mind. Let's see. I'm still waiting to be tapped to write the live-action Dragon Ball adaptation. I fantasize about it literally once a week and have a treatment written up in my head. I will only support you if you let Justin Chatwin have some sort of redemption. You don't got to make him Goku or even give him like a big role, but put him in there and give him his just dues, because I at least like the guy, right? So Timon says, this is bullshit. Only in entertainment, the people that make a product get a pass when the product is bad. Everyone is to blame. See, no, I don't agree with this, because this fundamentally misunderstands how entertainment is made. When it comes to actors or people who are designing sets or assembling, CG, yes, there is a level of skill where we can all see like, oh, that was bad CG, that was bad acting, all that sort of stuff. But most of the time, when you get something super just terrible, you have to look at the writers, the directors, the producers, because those are the ones who are actually calling the shots. Actors can be there and go, oh, I think this might be an interesting direction or whatever. But the second an actor goes, oh, wait a second. I want to we can't do any of this. We got to redo all of it. You have to be like Tom Cruise maybe to have that kind of clout. Otherwise, everybody's going to say, shut the fuck up and do your lines. So yes, maybe there's an argument to be had that actors can shoulder some of the blame. I know a lot of people in this sphere are very much of the opinion that if you are an actor and you appear in any of these projects, you're just as bad as anybody. I don't agree with that, because there's just different things going into all these areas. Unfortunately, guys, like I know we would all like for life to be really clear cut and for us to go, you're clearly the problem, you're clearly bad, easy bango, but the world is complicated and it has nuance, and throwing people under the bus who maybe just signed on because they had a contract, right? Or just signed on because they thought initially it was going to be a good product. Like, for example, would we get mad at Mahershala Ali if the original Blade, or like once Blade comes out, if it was that girl swap version with his daughter, would we be mad at Mahershala even though he signed on, and we know on record that he signed on with them promising it was a Blade movie? Like, that's what I'm trying to say, is that, yeah, there's sometimes actors who go, oh, I want to take this role because it's representation or whatever. But a lot of times they go, I'm in for this role. Tell me what lines, tell me how to act, right? Like, remember, there are directors, there are producers. Actors don't just get up there and go, I'm going to do all of this on my own. They have to write the lines that are written for them. They have to say the lines, or they have to act the way that the boss is telling them to act. Sort of like, are we all going to get mad at Chris Hemsworth for starring in Thor 4? No, because guess what? He didn't like that movie. He didn't want to do that movie, and he was only in it because he had his contract. There are things like, that's what I mean. There's too much nuance here for me at least to comfortably go, you're all bad, right? Just in the same way that when a bad video game comes out, I don't blame the sound designers, or I don't blame the people who modeled the trees in the background, because yeah, maybe I can criticize them if their work is objectively bad, but if it's part of a bad product, well, there's lots of stuff going into that where I can't just go, you fucked it up like 100%. It doesn't matter, Timon. That's you're all right. Like, I'm gonna drop this topic after this because like we're not gonna find a common ground. But they agreed to be in these films. They don't always agree to what is exactly on the script. They don't always know what they're signing on for. They don't know what changes might happen when a producer comes down and says, "Oh, we got to make sure to add in this thing. We got to make sure to add in that thing." There are thousands of stories, even in our sphere, of people we highlight. Henry Cavill, Chris Hemsworth, like I was just talking about, who signed on for projects that ended up shit. But a lot of people in our sphere go, "Oh, well, we understand. That's not what you thought you were signing on for. It's not your fault, Henry, that Justice League turned out bad. That's Joss Whedon," right? So, yeah, like I'm not going to shit on everybody just because the world is too complicated. Justin Chatwin as I say Yamcha. I think Yamcha's way better than Raditz. I don't even know who would be a good Raditz. It's hard to imagine live action like Saiyans with longer hair, like Raditz at least, where it's going all the way down, because 1-to-1 that would almost be like putting like a straight bear like on his back and letting him wear like all that fur. It would be so much. Tevya says, question, speaking of Marvel, that reminds me, why is Marvel so stupid keeping Jackpot? Because frankly, nobody, myself included, likes Mary Jane as Jackpot. Because personally for me, yeah, we want Spider-Man married and all that stuff. So the real reason for that is that it's not Jackpot specific. It is very well known at this point that the Spider editorial has a literal hate boner for anything having to do with the Spider marriage. They don't want them being near each other. They don't want alternate stories, even teasing them. They, like, Nick Lowe has this Nick Lowe and Zeb Wells just don't want them together. So it's less, oh, we really want Jackpot, and more, what can we give MJ to do to keep her away from Peter? And yeah, I don't think anybody likes Jackpot. I've never met like a real Jackpot fan. I don't see fan art. There's nothing there. So really, when it comes to Mary Jane as a character, just keep in mind that for the last like 10 years, she's been handled primarily by an office that does not care about her. That would honestly would like her gone more than anything else. Like I know Nick Lowe is just begging every like week he's like going to Tom Brevoort, who's the senior editor over there, and like, please, can we just get rid of Mary Jane so people stop asking and I don't have to keep addressing it anymore? And so, yeah. Yeah, Worston doesn't care, actively despises her. That's even better, Leon, because yeah, look at the way she's been treated. She's just not Mary Jane anymore. They've taken away what her character was and made her into generic sitcom strong boss friend. Okay, the best way I can describe it is, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there is this review of Marvel's Spider-Man 2 that went around when the game came out, and I wish I could remember who the reviewer was, but he basically comes out and he says, you know, my biggest problem with the script in this game is that none of this dialogue feels natural. Everything that they're saying to us feels like it's polite HR coworker talk. And I remember hearing that review and being like, that's not just a Marvel Spider-Man 2 problem. It's a Marvel Comics problem. And with Mary Jane, you can see that almost on display, because all the way her and Peter interact are like, wow, very good for you. I'm so happy for you now. Thanks. Good luck on what you're about to do next. There's no humanity behind them, because they know that the second you give Peter and MJ humanity, they are supposed to be together, right? Like they are Marvel's Lois Lane and Superman. They're one of the biggest, most definitive pop culture couples of all time. And yet, whether through arrogance or ignorance, the Spider Office just says, no, not doing it ever. No. Do you guys ever watch Scrubs? Right? I don't know if you guys have watched Scrubs, but there's an episode where they, like JD and Turk and Elliot and Carla, they need to get a patient some emergency work done, but it's like Friday afternoon at the hospital and everything's closing down, and they go to the imaging room and they talk to the guy with the MRI machine, and he's this little guy, and they go, can we please just like get one person in here? And he goes, do you know whose machines they are? They're mine. My machines. Mine. And he just like throws a tantrum for like 5 more minutes until Elliot shows up and sort of like verbally bitch slaps him down. But that's what I sort of feel the Spider editorial room is like. Is Nick Lowe and Zeb Wells got their hands on these characters and they went, no, mine. I'm gonna do it with my way, and we've all been suffering for it. Shinkai says, we're sorry for Henry Cavill signing up for something that failed. Spencer, do you know how little that narrows it down? Oh yeah, no, I love the janitor in Scrubs. One of my favorite bits, Timon, is there's an episode where JD is watching The Fugitive, the Harrison Ford movie, and that actor who plays the janitor is in that movie as like a security guard. He's the one who like tries to stop Harrison Ford on the train and like draws his gun on him. And JD sees that scene, so he tries to spend the entire episode like proving it's him, and the janitor's like, no. And then at like the very end, he admits it. But I'm like, that's a really cool play with reality and how all that stuff goes on. Let's see. Did watch Scrubs, but I loved Psych more. I loved Psych. That was really fun. Even when they keep bringing it back, like they do an occasional movie every once in a while, they don't miss a beat. It's still pretty damn decent. So Tevye says, at least the game has Mary Jane and Peter be a couple, which made me so happy. It's like the one advantage of the game. I will say, if you want more MJ and Peter Parker together, read Ultimate Spider-Man. It is it's just an incredible book, probably the best comic book being published right now. It's so good, guys, that the first trade for Ultimate Spider-Man, which collects, I believe, like the first 6 or 7 issues, it's selling manga numbers. So I work for Bounding, obviously. I get all the stats, delivered to my inbox, like monthly, weekly, whenever they're released. Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1 has placed, with things like Dan and, like Demon Slayer, just all of the shit, all the manga, it's up there. That's how good this book is. But more to the point for you, Tevye, it is one of the best depictions of Peter Parker and Mary Jane as a couple that I've ever seen. It is one of the best depictions of a loving couple that I have ever seen, like a loving married relationship. It is, as somebody who's, we'll get gay a little bit because this is where we are, right, Andrew and Corey? But I am a bit of a romantic. So when I see the way, it does hurt me when I read comic books and stuff, and a lot of the drama is always like, we broke up, we don't like each other, will she love me? And it's like, I want to see what happens when you're happy. Is like, maybe that's out there for me. I know it's a little gay and aspirational, but I like to see that. And so seeing that in MJ and Peter in 6160 is beyond refreshing, fun. Yeah, I would recommend that. And then if you get the inkling for more Peter MJ, there is a current mini running right now. It's called Venomore Spider-Man. It is obviously tied into the Venomore event. It's a 4-issue mini that focuses on Spider-Man and Mary Jane teaming up to defeat some symbiote threats. But the main point, or the reason I bring it up, is that Joe Kelly and somebody, I forget who's writing it with him, but Joe Kelly clearly didn't get the memo from the Spider offices that, like, we're not supposed to use MJ, because this miniseries, it's set in the 616. It is just all like, it is the symbiote calling out Peter for still being in love with Mary Jane. It's Peter soliloquying in his own mind about how much he loves Mary Jane. It is what we would all expect from like a good Spider-Man writer. So you don't have to check out all of Venomore to check out that particular miniseries, but I do really like all of those interactions that they get. Yeah, no, seriously, yeah, that was actually him. That's why I like that little scene. I read that book, Venomore. It sucked because they mentioned Paul. Well, okay, yes, Paul was there and they mentioned him, but that's sort of like ancillary to the what is the main thing, right? Yes, Paul's there, but the focus here is that this is a book about Peter and MJ and how much they love each other still. And it's clear that even the deepest forces at Marvel still want that to be the absolute end game. All right. So before we get into the latest Spider-Man issue, I figure I should probably let you guys know what our stream buddy over here is tonight. Let me find the issue. I know Zero already spoiled it a little bit. Well, not spoiled, but he called it out. So there is a series right now that's being published by Marvel called Phases of the Moon Knight. You can see the cover for the first issue right here, or third issue, sorry, right here. And it's an anthology series where a bunch of different creators get to come on, tell like a 3 or 4 page story about a Moon Knight, whether it's one that's been established, one that was in the past, an alternate one, all, blah, 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 all that sort of fun stuff. So in this, the main reason I'm like confusing myself here. So in this third issue, what was really cool is that if you guys notice right here, there's a story called Moon Knight-chan by Yuji Kaku. Now, if you don't know who Yuji Kaku is, he is actually the mangaka behind Hell's Paradise. Jigoraku, I can never say that last name. You guys remember when I came back from my trip and I was like, I just read Hell's Paradise. I couldn't pronounce it back then. Still can't pronounce it now. So they tapped the mangaka behind Hell's Paradise to do a Moon Knight story. And so that is who our stream buddy is now. It is the Moon Knight he came up with was Moon Knight-chan. And it's actually, I'm not going to spoil it. We're not going to go through it. You can read it if you want to. But it is essentially magical girls, but they're boys. It's a really interesting premise. Obviously, if you're one of my viewers who doesn't like this kind of stuff, you're not going to like it, and I'm not going to try and convince you of it. But it's really pretty. It's got some really interesting concepts behind it, and obviously some really great artwork. But I loved this story. There's even some humor in it. But yeah, I think it's really cool when manga and comic books team up, acknowledge each other's strengths instead of pretending the other one doesn't exist. I mean, that's more of a Western thing, pretending like manga doesn't exist. So really cool. And it's even better when it's not just like a manga style artist, but an actual mangaka. So really cool. I highly recommend checking it out. I was so excited that the Hell's Paradise mangaka did it that I went and I got both of the variant covers of this issue that he drew. So that is who is hanging out with us tonight. Yeah, no, it's a super interesting story. It's like what, 6-7 pages. You guys can probably find it online. It rules. Definitely check it out. It is very cool. And yeah, no, I just check it out for yourself. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, see, I don't consider this race swapping. This is just a what if story, right? Blade as Moon Knight in What If. Okay, so then it's Blade. It's not race swapping. It's just Blade is Moon Knight now. I'm not gonna get mad about that one. All right, so with that all said, let us move on away from our cute kawaii Moon-chan to the main event for tonight. Oh, I started there in the middle. Yes, folks, we are finally here. We are at the last issue of Zeb Wells's absolutely awful Amazing Spider-Man run. It's been about, I don't even know how many years it's been since he took over. Let's look that up. Let's Google that, guys. When did Zeb Wells start Spider-Man? 2022. 2022? That cannot be right. I guess he did 2022. He did all of this he destroyed Spider-Man in 2 years. That's absolutely bonkers, right? Like I cannot. That's what I'm saying, right? Leon. But I just looked it up. It's 2022. I don't know how you get those numbers. Let's see. Zeb Wells, Amazing Spider-Man 1. April 27th, 2022. I do know that they publish Amazing. It's got to be like 2 or 3. I think it's like twice a month. So that boosts it, but that would only boost it to about 40-ish issues. So I have no idea what they're doing over there, but it has been way too long for him to have been on this run, because if you guys, yes, volume dealer, Mark is a white guy, but Mark is not Blade. I don't know how to differentiate this. They're not saying Mark Spector is black. They're saying Blade, another character, is now Moon Knight. I mean, we've seen this all the time when Danny Rand decided he was going to step in for Daredevil, or when I mean, Spider-Man has given his identity, like when Nightcrawler took on the Spider-Man identity. It's not them. That's not a race swap. It's just another character taking on the mantle. If if you guys want to consider that a race swap and argue about that, that's cool. I'm not going to stop you, but I don't find any offense with having another character take on another character's like costume, especially if it's a what if story. So, right, exactly. Like so much longer than what we actually got. So if you guys remember, we got to this run off of a decent-ish run from Cody Ziegler and at the very end Zeb Wells. So if you guys remember, in the last volume of Amazing Spider-Man before Wells took over, we had Nick Spencer trying his damnedest to set up a retcon of the Mary Jane, Peter Parker, One More Day thing. If you go back and you read that entire volume of his, it straight up ends, I think I've shown you guys before, on them, a big splash shot of Mary Jane and Peter kissing on the top of the Empire State Building. So that was where Nick Spencer left off. Then we had, after Nick Spencer, we got a small gap run by Cody Ziegler. And if you guys remember that run, that was the Beyond run where Peter Parker got temporarily hospitalized after fighting the UFOs. So he was super radiized. He had like radiation poisoning. With him being down, the Beyond Corporation found Ben Reilly and made him New York's new Spider-Man, right? So that was sort of the dynamic, was Ben is back. He's trying his damnedest to be Spider-Man. It's hard. He's stumbling, but you know what? He's finding his own way. It was actually a pretty decent run. And I'm saying this as somebody who's not a Cody Ziegler fan. For those who might recognize that name but can't place him, Cody Ziegler is the main writer for Miles Morales, and he has been for the last couple years. Famously, he is the writer who gave Miles Morales his stupid-ass sword. He's not my favorite. He also did like the Miles Morales clone saga. He's I don't know. I'm not a big fan of his. But this run, obviously, Ben is my favorite character. So seeing Ben back in action and being sort of happy and not at like odds with Spider-Man, it was nice to see that. But then Zeb Wells joins the gang at the very end of that run. And pretty much from the jump, Wells decides to just spread his cheeks and shit all over everything that Spider-Man has been, everything Spider-Man was, everything that Spider-Man could have been. So he joins in at the very end of that Beyond storyline, and the first thing Wells does is turn Ben into fucking Chasm. Now, I'm going to bring this up here. You guys have heard me go on this rant before, but since, this might be the last time, hopefully we have to talk about this run. The big issue here, Zeb Wells keeps trying to push like, oh, Ben was a clone. He didn't have his own life, and he's starting to feel that. There's an interview he did, one of the interviews I clipped, where he talks about how Ben, it's like if you've been broken up with, you feel rejected, you don't feel good about yourself, you start lashing out, and I'm like, I don't think you understand who Ben Reilly was. Because if you go back and you read everything about him, yes, he began life as a clone of Peter who was mad because he wasn't the real Peter, and that caused a lot of turmoil. But after learning that he was the clone, Ben accepted that. He went and he started living his own life. He was the Scarlet Spider. He was even Spider-Man on his own. And what Ben represented was, this is what Peter could be if he was able to forgive himself. Not, say I'm the best person for letting Uncle Ben die, or, oh man, I'm such a great hero for all these people not being saved. But instead of letting that weigh him down, letting him accept it, be a part of him and move forward. That's what Ben was. So to have Ben immediately just go into this mode of, I want my life back. You hurt me, Peter. Give me my memories. It's like you just fundamentally don't understand anything about this character, which is what I think defines Wells's run just through and through. Nobody in this run, outside of one story, and we will get to it because it's sort of an exception, does anybody act like the characters you would expect them to be, right? It's just, it's awful, because then we go from Ben as Chasm to, oh look, Mary Jane and Peter are broken up again. And if you guys, the very first arc of Wells's Amazing Spider-Man run has Peter on the outs with all the superhero community, trying to get back to Mary Jane in another dimension where she's under threat. But it's another one of those really fucking dumb things that we were talking about earlier with Superior Spider-Man, right, guys? Where Peter gets back from this dimension. he needs help. He needs to go back to that dimension. He needs to find a way to save Mary Jane. When he, instead of like asking for help or trying to talk to somebody, he instead decides that he's just going to do what he needs and solve it. So that means like, oh, I need something from the Fantastic Four. I'm just going to steal it. You saw in the intro, oh, Captain America wants to talk to me about maybe calming down and offering me help. No, I'm just going to slam his shield in his face, right? It doesn't make sense because there's no threat. There's no like brain bomb. There's just nothing here. Zeb Wells really, really, really wants to play with this idea of Spider-Man is evil and on the outs and a jerk, but it doesn't play given his history, given where we are in Spider-Man at this point, right? Like he's no longer the weird outsider who maybe shows up during big crossovers. Dude is on every team. Everybody knows him. Like he is a pillar of the Marvel universe. So you can't just have him randomly be a dick and break bad and have nobody question it. So, oh yeah, no, the Beyond arc started off like that's what I'm with you, Tevya. It started off enjoyable. I really liked the idea of, Peter's not dead. I was really happy they didn't do the like Peter's dead. Oh my gosh, what comes next? But they were like Peter is in the hospital and he will be sidelined, and I'm like, that's cool. I can deal with that, especially if you're bringing back Ben. And they did a bunch of interesting things with having him sort of as like a Spider-Man with a support team, right? Because he had all the Beyond guys with all of his tech. And I thought there was a lot of possibility there. And I also thought that we could have done something cool again at the end where it's like, okay, Peter's back. Well, I'll go be a Spider-Man somewhere else. There are a billion other cities. I mean, that's what Kane did. Kane was like, all right, we don't need any more Spider people in New York. I'm going to go to San Antonio. So yeah, the way that entire story ended and its fallout, just absolutely dog crap. Just really, really, really bad. Right, so Peter has had moments like that, but there's so few and far between, and only when things are so bad, Peter loses himself. And that's part of his character too, is finding his way back. And I think that, you hit something on the head here, Leon, and that is true. Peter has had those moments where he flips out and he sort of lashes out at people. The problem is, again, this is one of those situations where it's like, oftentimes when he does that, it's a very personal thing, sort of like we would all do, right? Like if something bugged me someday, there might be a time when, I don't know, Punk comes up to me, he's like, yo, Spencer, what's up? And I'm like, what do you want? And it's like, oh, that's not Spencer. Something's clearly up. That sucks. Like, ouch. Like, you have all right to be upset, but you also know that you recognize it's weird because that's not how I usually am. So to that point, a lot of what causes Peter to lash out at that are more of the personal problems, right? Like, oh man, this, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay rent. Oh man, Norman knows my identity and he's like taunting me with it. Oh no, I don't, insert scenario here. There are a million of them. But this is different because if you're part of the superhero community, world-ending shit like this is what you guys all get together for, right? Like, that's the entire point of giant crossovers, of having super teams, of having community. So for Peter to just show up and go, I'm going to solve everything on my own, I have no time to explain to anybody, doesn't work. It doesn't track. You can have Doctor Strange make a temporary time bubble, give you 30 minutes to explain to him while only a second passes outside. You could go talk to Reed Richards and be like, can we go back in time and give me like 30 minutes for me to explain? There are things here. That's the problem, is that there are too many obvious caveats to the actions that Zeb Wells writes for Spider-Man that none of them can sort of really be taken seriously. There's this discussion. I don't know if we talked about it last week, but I've been seeing more of a discussion lately. It comes and it ebbs and flows, and it, sometimes people are always talking about it, sometimes they're not. But oh shit, what was I gonna say? I totally I looked over at the comments and now my mind totally blanked on what the point I was gonna make there about stories and all that. Oh well, it'll probably come back to me. But oh right, so there you can have stories where like, oh, why didn't he do that? And it's like, well, that might have been complicated. There's all this. It's like, okay, that is admittedly like a far off, like out of reach thing, right? So if you're watching, say, like Guardians of the Galaxy, right? You're like, oh, well, why didn't they just call the Avengers? And it's like, well, they're out in space. Their ship was busted. They don't really have, regular contact with the Avengers. And you go, okay, maybe you could have found a workaround, but that makes sense. That's okay. These are too obvious. You're watching a movie and you're like, why wouldn't he do that? Why wouldn't somebody ask for help? Again, it's the exact same thing with Dan Slott. If you have to make your characters act out of character for a story to happen, it's a bad story. It doesn't work. Even though I never read any of Zeb's ASM runs, says Frickin' Punk, it fucking sucks the way Peter was treated. Oh, so let's get into that. There's this bit that Wells said in his interviews where, in his opinion, the way to test to him, good writing is throwing all the bad things at a character and seeing, how they recover from it. How do they deal with it? And I understand that to a certain degree, you need your characters to have challenges and struggles and things that they have to fight against, whether that be a problem or a physical person or whatever. I get that. But there's a difference between writing conflict and presenting problems and just shitting on your character. And what really feels disingenuous about that angle to me is that Spider-Man's not an autonomous being. You can't, whatever you throw at him, that's on you to make him recover. There's no magical, okay, it's not a zoo, right? Spider-Man's not in a cage and we're throwing bad plot lines at him and we're going, oh, okay, so then he reacts like that, then he does this. Oh, that's how he's going to redeem himself. It's Zeb Wells going, all right, here we go. Now what? And he doesn't do redemption, right? Like, to me, as we'll see when we get into this issue and we start breaking it down, what Wells loves to do is destroy everything and give you all of that drama, make your character super sad, and then instead of sort of giving you an out or actually letting him recover to a good place, to Wells, recovery is just, you're ready to move on. So nothing changes, nothing is better. The character almost always ends up sort of at ground zero rather than, let's say we came into this run off of the Beyond stuff. We could say that Peter almost, with Spencer setting up MJ again, let's say Peter's life was at an 8. So Wells comes in, drops his quality of life down to a 2. Now that we're here at the end, rather than letting Peter get a reward for having gone through all that or showing him, lifting back up to maybe a 6 or 7, it goes from a 2 to a 4, where it's like, okay, maybe he's not suicidally depressed, but things are really, really bad for him still. And to him, that is sort of good storytelling, when it really, really isn't good storytelling. It is sort of just letting somebody else deal with your mess. So like that is Wells almost to a T. Tevia says, what I don't understand, why can't anyone fire Nick Lowe? Because he's such an awful editor, and with ASM failing in sales, shouldn't he be fired at this point? That's one of the big mysteries. I wish, Tevia, I could even begin to speculate or offer some insight. I just have none. I am baffled to this day why Nick Lowe continues to be a Spider editor, particularly because, if you guys remember, we've looked at it here before on the show, almost every issue of Zeb Wells' Amazing Spider-Man run, Nick Lowe always prints a letter from somebody who writes in and says, hey guys, big Spider-Man fan, not a big fan of what you guys are doing with the character, not a big fan of, Peter and MJ still being broken up. Why can't we undo one more day? There's almost always a letter like that, and Wells or Lowe always prints it and responds with that sounds like a minority opinion. There are lots of people who love this storyline. I don't know what you're talking about, man. It's so brutally condescending that if I were in charge of Marvel, I would go this is awful customer service. Get the hell out of this office. So I don't know. At this point, it could be anything from blackmail to black magic to whatever. But something is keeping Nick low there, and I agree with you. He needs to go. He needs to, or if you don't want to be mean and let him go, take him off of a main book and let him try to like rebuild his reputation on some minis or something. Because this is just, it's not working over there in the Spider offices. Leon! All right, got to bounce. Oh, you're recording before your stream tonight. Dang, you were burning that midnight oil. Yeah, for sure, dude. Obviously, I will be. If you want to come on before the panel, just yeah, I'll probably hit you up. We'll see what I'm up to, but I will at the very least be in your chat. You know, you'll see me, my man. But so yeah, so sort of recapping the main things Zeb Wells did in this run, right? So destroyed Ben Reilly's character and made him Chasm. Broke up Peter and MJ in a way that is so dumb that there are literally no defenders. So I don't really want to like sit here and go issue through issue of this run, because we could do that. I could do that for like all weekend. We could have a full 48, 72 hour Amazing Spider-Man breakdown stream. But I am going to pull up one particular issue because it is going to highlight one of the main problems we need to talk about, which is it in this issue? I just want to find that really, it's a really dumb image. You've all seen it, and I know you'll all go, because I do that too. Every time I see it. It is, there we go. There we are, guys. How fun. How friendly fun. Do you all remember this moment? So, this was sort of the big crux of Zeb Wells's beginning run, the beginning elements of his run. This happens in issue 26. It is showing why Peter and MJ are broken up. And as everybody here has probably already groaned, it's Paul. Welcome to the most useless character like creation of all time. So I want to sort of really crunch on Paul for a second, because there's not a lot of Paul stuff to get into in the main issue. But there's nothing redeemable here, to the point where like I think even Zeb Wells realized how low of a concept this was. Paul only exists to provide a reason why MJ cannot be with Peter. And it isn't even really a good reason at all. So I know a bunch of you did not watch watch. A lot of you didn't read this run. So quick recap, what you're looking at here, and to sort of give context to Peter coming back. At the beginning of this run, Peter and MJ are transported to a alternate universe New York that is completely wiped out by a Aztec god of mischief called Wayep. And in that, while they're there, Wayep is gaining power, is threatening to destroy that world, and suddenly, through like tact and emergency engineering on Peter's part, they're all able to open up a portal to back to Earth, and MJ shoves Peter through it. Everybody, like Peter goes to get help, and when Peter comes back, it turns out that even though Peter's only been gone for a couple days, in this universe he's been gone for years. And in the interim, Mary Jane met Paul, who seems to be the universe's only survivor, and also these two kids who happen to be wandering around. And while Peter's been gone, they got close, they started a relationship, and now that's her family. Now, the big dumb part about this is that if you are Mary Jane, right? And this goes back to you're not writing the characters as we know them or as they are. If you're Mary Jane, you know that this shit happens with Spider-Man. You don't just, I don't know. If I knew that this was a regular sort of occurrence, like time travel happens, dimension hopping happens, I wouldn't necessarily abandon Peter that fast, much less get into like an active relationship with somebody else. Sort of like, it doesn't track with two people who are supposed to be that in love with that much of a connection. I'm not saying it's not hard. I'm not saying, here, I'm even going to look up just before I put my foot in my mouth. How long was Peter gone, Paul, Mary Jane? Let's just see. 4 years. So it was 4 years that they were separated. And I can, yeah, I can get the drama that Wells is going for there. Like, it's been a while, you haven't been around. But I just feel like with the history between these two, with the regular occurrences of this kind of crap, moving on that fast, that quickly, that definitively feels really, really, really shitty. Especially because, like, at least to me, you're Mary Jane, you're going, Peter's never coming back. Okay, I'm giving up on him. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like maybe, again, this is the romantic in me, but I feel like I would need more than that amount of time if somebody's like, I'm coming back for you. I'm Spider-Man. I know Doctor Strange. I know the Eternals. I can do something. Like, I would probably hold on a little bit longer. But, well, that's an arguable point about people's preferences on moving on and all that sort of fun stuff. What really drives home how little of a character Paul has is, one, he doesn't get a last name until like issue 40. ZEB Wells, for the longest time, he's just Paul. Even on the wikis, even on the Marvel website, just Paul. He was created just to be a prop, a drama prop. Just as these kids were as well. Because if you guys don't know, when they get back to their regular dimension, the kids phase out of existence. They were just manipulations by Wayep. They're not real. So nothing is real. Paul doesn't have a reason to be there. And yet for the rest of the run, MJ acts like Paul is the greatest man to ever live. She's dedicated to him. She's in love with him. She wants to have this relationship with him. And it gets even stupider when we learn in that like 40th issue that Paul's dad was Wayep, the guy who ruined the earth, and Paul helped him kill everybody. Paul genocided a planet, and yet MJ's like, I love this guy. I want to be with... This is the guy who... I don't even know what he contributes. All he's doing right now, back to that point I think Tevye was making about Jackpot, he's just serving as Jackpot's man in the chair. That's all he is now. He shows up for like date scenes, and if MJ ever puts on her Jackpot suit. Even in the storyline where Peter, I've mocked it throughout the entire run, the goblin who laughs or the spider who laughs, right? During that thing, when his like evil side was coming out, even then he just attacks Paul and he's like, I don't like you. And Paul's like, you don't like me. And then that's it. So like this character doesn't exist. He literally just exists so that Wells can go, no, they can't be together. They can't be together. There's no chemistry. There's nothing between them except they are written to be together, right? And it's just, it's bad writing altogether. It is clearly just some sort of weird, like, neener, I'm not going to give you what you want. You're going to be stuck with Paul. And it's just, right? So, like, to an extent, creators should, there is a level of listening to fans that creators should do. Yes, creators, if you're writing a story, you don't have to listen to everything your fans are telling you, like, do this and do that and introduce this and undo that, because then you're not going to make anybody happy. But it is generally a good idea to sort of take the temperature of your fans, what's working for them, what's not, and sort of retool it to see, maybe I can save it, maybe I have to, mulligan it, who knows. At no point with this storyline with Paul did ZEB Wells ever go, maybe we should abandon it. Maybe this isn't as strong as it is. It was a stronger storyline, guys, honest to God, if Wells wanted to do this, would be MJ just doesn't want to be with Peter. She saw that he didn't come back in time. She saw him break bad like that, and now she's separating herself. Not because there's another guy, but because she's like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if, it's a retread of the we're Spider-Man, okay, or like, I don't know if I can be with Spider-Man story, but it's better than this. It's just better than this. You don't need to remind me of that. We all know full well. Oh shit, I almost knocked down my shelf. I always do that. Yeah, so Zero here and Tevye are sort of on the same point. Zero says, I know this so many times, but nothing short of rebooting Marvel back to Civil War would fix this at this point. That's what Tevye's saying. At this point, a reboot is probably necessary. So I agree. So I'm sort of two minds here, right? On one hand, I very much believe that, yes, like maybe the hand you were dealt wasn't the best hand, but I still think it's possible for a good writer to come in on a bad idea and do something interesting with it. Gosh, I can't think of one off the top of my head because I don't know one off the top of my head. I'm sure there are many that have worked, but yeah. So it's very much possible for a writer to come in and build on this concept and make it something that works. However, I am also of the opinion that I think that this just is too much damage to undo, and in a way that makes any sort of logical sense that isn't just going to have everybody dragged along for a ride. Here's Mav's point that he brings up every stream, number 705. If you guys remember, I was, Secret Wars, the 2015 crossover with Dr. Doom, God Emperor Doom and all that stuff, that was supposed to be a full-on reboot. Like, that was supposed to be, we are starting from zero with, like, the Ultimate Universe crossed into the main. But Marvel chickened out at the last second, and that's why so continuity stayed janky, and the only thing we got out of that was Miles in 616. So, to my point, I was always in support of that idea, but I don't know, for some reason, Marvel just seems super, super averse to doing that. And I think at this point, something needs to happen. Something needs to reset. Something needs to do a new status quo, because at least DC, at least up until everything is... Okay, let me rephrase this. At least DC did over the years try to collapse their timelines and their continuities and all this stuff. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes it's not, but at the very least, they were doing something. They were trying something. Marvel has just been running straight since the 60s. There's been no different, like, Earth Zero, Earth One thing. So they are muddy. And then you get here and you get just out of character performances for an entire 60 issue run. Corey, take off, my man. Yeah, you always have work early on Saturdays. It always bums me out, but thanks for hanging out, man. It's always a pleasure to see you. I hope I'll see you on Sunday. I'm not going to be playing Mario Party, but I hope you are there because I love watching all you guys play. So yeah, the main Paul point here is that Paul only exists to give Zeb Wells a prop to go, ha 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 ha, you're not going to get what you want. And it just, this isn't, being intentionally antagonistic to your fan base or your reader base, not even your fans, but just like the people who are reading your book, being unnecessarily antagonistic, I don't know who this wins over anymore. Even if you go on Twitter and you look at like mainstream comic book accounts or whatever, big comic book account users who read all of the stuff, nobody likes this run except for the big ass contrarians who are like, this is high, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you don't believe that. You just want to whine. You just want to bitch and complain. So this entire run with the Goblin that laughs, the chasming, the palming, it all finally concluded with, oh, I just had it a second ago and I closed it. Where did I put it? It all finally concluded with this right here, issue 60, right? So with issue 60, we finally get the resolution to sort of all of Wells' plot lines. So that's why I sort of wanted to give a recap, so then we can look at this and sort of touch on all of the... This is a good sort of montage that we can look at, but it had a severe lack of Paul content, so we needed to go back for that one. So this issue basically begins with Tombstone and Peter wrapping up everything that came out of Gang War, which, if you guys read Gang War, it was really just sort of boring. I sort of have the same issue with gangs that I have with something like vampires being a big enemy like they did in Blood Hunt. I just don't see gangsters posing a threat, especially like maybe to Spider-Man on his own, maybe to Spider-Man and Daredevil and Punisher, but when you're starting to bring in like Luke Cage and She-Hulk into the mix, like a gang war doesn't really ring with me. It just is like, okay, you guys should be able to wrap this up very, very fast. So that entire storyline was just boring. But basically what we get here is the aftermath resolution where they're in court. They're going to see what happens. And unfortunately for Peter, because the court doesn't accept costumed identities to like testify in court, all the charges against Tombstone are dropped and he's free to go, which pisses me off because if you guys remember in so admittedly after this, Tombstone reveals that he got to the judge and so it was rigged and that's why the judge ruled in his favor. However, that doesn't excuse the fact that in the recent Daredevil comics, they established in continuity that superheroes can go and like their identities can be like what do you call it? Like entered as witnesses. They can go to jail. They can be prosecuted, all that. So like it's all valid. So I'm not against the judge throwing out Tombstone's ruling or whatever, but the way he does it is just, again, ignoring everything else and going, oh, I have my sandbox, I'm going to play with it, whatever. Because, yeah, this is just flagrantly violating the law and not even on any reason. He's just saying, no superheroes in my court. And you can't do that in a court, right? Like, you couldn't say, like, oh, I don't believe in the First Amendment in this court. I'm good with everything else, but no First Amendments here. You can't do that. You have to abide by all of it. You might find an exception and be like, well, I know this is a First Amendment case, but you were at a private business, so on and so forth. But they don't even do that here. Wells just goes, okay, go home. So then we get just another sort of fight interaction between Sandman is evil again, which is, yay, great. And we get this fight with Sandman where basically it's the fight from No Way Home. Like, I'm not even lying. Like, you can see there's that device there that Peter's trying to jam into Sandman right here. It's the exact same thing that he tried to blast him with in No Way Home. And it even ends the same way, where once he activates it, Sandman just falls apart and he can't constitute himself. So then we get this is really, I don't even know what this is. I like, this little interaction here makes me fucking angry, and I'm not even entirely sure why, because it's not egregious. There's nothing necessarily wrong here. It's just sort of like shut the fuck up, Zeb Wells. Like, you're not doing anything here. So what this is after Sandman explodes, we get Aunt May going over to Spider-Man and sort of being like, please, I know my nephew helps you, but he's always running off into danger. I don't want him to get hurt. And he's like, okay, I get it. And then he tells her, like, but we know your nephew, if he didn't help people, he wouldn't be Peter Parker. And so then she's just sort of like, okay, you're right. Be safe out there. And I don't know what it feels like he's trying to have one of those really emotional connection moments between Aunt May and Spider-Man, but it just, fuck you, dude. Like, it doesn't work. There's nothing here. It feels so cheap, so lazy, so nothing. It contributes nothing to your narrative, to your personal run. It contributes nothing to the overall Spider mythos. And it feels like you only threw it in here for a really cheap tug at the heartstrings to go, remember Aunt May and Spider-Man, look at how blah, blah, blah. But it's just the same thing we always get. It ends with them on good terms, hanging out. Great. So just, I don't even know what to say. This was a nothing resolution to his entire story. It's nothing. And so from here we go on to about 4 more stories that Zeb wrote that are wrapping up everything else that happened in his run. Second story, unfortunately, reveals that this asshole, so if you guys didn't read the awful dark web crossover, which is where Chasm sort of showed out, this is Wreck Rap, which is Parker backwards. He's a demon who thinks he's Spider-Man. He is, I've talked about him before, he is basically LOL so random, XD, I had a cookie for you, but I ate it. Like, he's that kind of humor. He is a Hot Topic t-shirt humor. And nobody really liked him when he got introduced. There was even a moment in the Spider-Man Who Laughs story where this dude, and this is where it's picking up, where he got gored. Yeah, exactly, Tevya. Yeah, so why did Wreck Rap survive? Who fucking knows? Because they wanted him to stick around for some reason. He's such a dumb character. He's a bad character. He offers nothing. And like I was saying before, I laughed at what Tevya said. In the Spider-Man Who Laughs story, he gets gored by a glider, and it looks like he's down. But then Wells writes this story just to remind everybody, oh yeah, he's still here. Hooray! Like, it makes me so frustrated. He's like, it doesn't even, like, this isn't even for, nobody wanted him here. I don't know why you were so insistent. It doesn't even feel like you're being, like, funny, like, haha, remember that dumb thing I made? It feels like you're being malicious. Like, yeah, I made this thing you all hate, but guess what? Deal with it. Ha, that's on you now. Peace. So, right, there's nothing funny about this concept. It is so outdated, but there it is. So yeah, Zero. Zero brings us up. Well, the story is legit retarded. If this is all that happens, that's all that happens. So like that's what I was explaining, Zero. And sort of part of my frustration that I didn't get to. So thank you for making this point. But right here, you can see that there are 4 extra stories in addition to that one from Zeb Wells, and all of these stories wrap up his run. This story is just sort of the punctuation to the main run itself, right? Like, because it's got the John Romita Jr. art, it's picking up right where the last issue left off. So yes, for all intents and purposes, this is the end of his run, and then there are 4 epilogues. So yes, I agree. All of this is done. There is nothing happening here. Right, like why couldn't he just be a delusion? Why can't he just go away? If you just put him back in limbo, and maybe I see him every once in a while in an X-Men comic because he's in limbo, I'd be like, oh, that's neat. Cool, good, done. That's all we need. So then from there, we get onto another story about the Dichromator, who is an old Spider-Man villain, Spider-Man Doctor Strange villain. He is going to be the main villain in the upcoming run by Joe Kelly, The 8 Deaths of Spider-Man, which we'll talk about a little bit as we get to the end of the issue. But this story is basically just a setup for that story, and it's showing how his powers work, sort of reminding everybody. And so the Chromata stuff is really ancillary. It's just sort of almost like a free comic book day prologue to the upcoming storyline. Nothing really offensive there. But as you guys can sort of see, the B plot to this story is it's Peter and MJ rushing to go have a double date with with Paul and I forget what her name is. They've had like 2 dates. She probably says it right. I know it starts with an S. It's like Shay. It's Shay. Yeah. So yeah, this story is them rushing to go to their double date and then having this moment where it's like, oh, we're connecting. Like, isn't it kind of great? Like, fighting a demon. I'm having fun. I'm glad to be here. You didn't stop. You brought me home. Didn't stop looking for me. Not until you found me. Thank you. Thank you for coming to save me. I'll always come for you, MJ. And then they go and they have dates with, like, Paul and Shay. Like, this to me is just another level of that fuck you, where it's like, oh, look, I'm Zeb Wells. I know what you guys want. I can even see what I was hinting at in my run. But guess what? They're just friends. It goes back to that co-worker talk from the Spider-Man 2 review. This interaction where it's like, hey, you really came for me. Thank you. Thank you. I'll always be there for you. Awesome. Now for our dates, it all feels like you are at a work event and you're trying to be on your best behavior to just not make waves and just get through without offending anybody. So that's what this feels like here. And it feels directly insulting to have this moment where they're obviously connecting and teaming up and then have them rush off to be oh so happy with Shay and Paul. Like, it's so, again, it's bad writing, it's childish, it's really a lot of just like, ha 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 ha, I got you. And yes, everyone, I am aware there is a chasm claw here at the bottom, but we will get to that in just a second because there's one more story to get to. Now, let me look this up really quick. I need to figure out what issue this was so I can bring up the original. Okay, cool. Let me vamp and talk to you guys. Ha cha 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 cha. I don't know if you guys caught this because we were talking about this last night on Foil Variant, but the rumored title for the next Spider-Man movie is Brand New Day. And we're not going to get into it a lot, but it's like, dude, that's what you're naming this? Like, have you thought at all? Like that's going to repulse people. Even if your movie is great, that is just going to straight up repulse people from checking it out. So, the next story in Zeb Wells' little book here, or in his final Spider-Man issue here, is a story about Wolverine's birthday. Spider-Man goes to hang out with him in a bar and drink, and they sort of spend time together. It's a 3-page story drawn by Paulo Rivera, and yeah, so Spidey hangs out with Logan on his birthday. They go to a bar. Spider-Man doesn't drink. Logan does. They get in a bar fight. That's how they celebrate his birthday. And he goes away. Or they part ways, rather. Now, you guys are going to be surprised, but I'm actually a fan of this particular tale because it actually links up to which surprise. I didn't realize this until I read that story in issue 60 from Wells. It actually is a sequel to one of my favorite Spider-Man stories that, here we go. Like, I can't believe I'm saying this. It was written by ZEB Wells. ZEB Wells has a W. Again, so you got to be able to, give credit where credit is due. And this is a story that I really liked out of ZEB Wells. So Amazing Spider-Man Extra number 2 from 2009. The story is essentially, it's by Paulo Rivera again, but Logan calls Spider-Man. It's an emergency. And Spider-Man's like, what? And so he kind of is like hanging out with him. And they talk while Logan gets super smashed. And then, of course, they get into a bar fight. They're talking. They get into a bar fight because everybody's getting rowdy. They handle everything. And, Spidey goes in. Everybody starts fighting. Logan goes nuts. It's a pretty fun story. It's a really good character moment. And then right here at the end, Peter's like, why am I even here still? We're just drinking. There's no mission. What am I doing? And Logan, you can read right there. It's 12:08. You can go. My birthday's over. And the revelation is that Logan has nobody to spend his birthday with, like the X-Men or family. And so he doesn't want to admit it, but he calls the one person that he genuinely considers a friend. And yeah, see, you're a good guy and you're dumb enough to think I am too. So it's a nice little story. It's very touching. I'm very much a fan of Spider-Man. I like him having superhero, a small handful of superhero best friends, Wolverine, Johnny Storm, and who the hell? Oh, Daredevil. I like when he's friends with Daredevil. So just a really good sort of condensed personal character story. I liked it way back here in 2009. I've always held it up as one of my favorite Spider-Man stories. So I will admit, it was nice seeing both, seeing that story again and Rivera come back to illustrate it. So not a lot to criticize on that one. Although if I had to pick something, I'd probably say that this was probably included as sort of like a mea culpa, if you will, because I'm not alone in liking this Wolverine bar story. It's a pretty regularly touted one. And so given that this doesn't tie into anything from the Amazing Spider-Man run, I genuinely feel like Wells was like, okay, maybe we can give them this and they'll like the run. Maybe I can get out of this with some of my reputation, but definitely not enough to save it. This story ain't funny, but just bad. Which one are you talking? Are you talking about the bar one, or are you talking about the dating one? Because if it's the bar one, I disagree, but I respect your opinion. Let's see. If you could trade This Story Never Existed for Wells' never written Spidey, would you? Heartbeat, absolute heartbeat, decision, Timon, right? Because this story, or the one I like right here, this is the second part, but that first one I like. It's a good, solid story. But it is admittedly a one shot. It doesn't have to play into anything. If you cut it out, we wouldn't miss anything from regular Marvel. But letting ZEB Wells exist and continue writing Spider-Man means we get everything we got. You know what I mean? So it's it'll be painful, but I would happily get rid of that if it means no Rec Rap, no Chasm, no Paul, no Spider-Man Who Laughs, none of that as all. None of that. So yeah, that's that story. We get ZEB Wells, the Bubs, great, cool. We move on. Not a lot going on here. Although I don't know what it is. There's something about this shot that I really, really like. Of Spidey walking home that way on the roofs, and you see Logan down there walking that way. Again, nothing to do with the writing. This is all on Paulo Rivera, but there's something nice about this shot. I really like it. If they did a print of this, I could see myself grabbing that. If one had to stay but other could go, would you choose Paul or Rec Rap? I would say Rec Rap stays. Because as annoying as he is, I think that a good writer who wasn't Reddit brained could maybe do something with like making fun of his character or toning down his character or something with it. I don't like him. I don't think there is anything you can do with him, but far be it for me if tomorrow they said like Grant Morrison is coming on to Spider-Man and Rec Rap is featuring, I would go, all right, maybe something is happening here. With Paul, I don't know anything you can do to make him interesting, to endear him to anybody. Like at this, really the only thing that would make people like him is if he went away. So with that balance, it's painful, but I would take a weird Spider-Man demon that maybe somebody could do something with over a blank wall that only exists to make us all angry. Yeah, exactly, Tevya. That's what I love about hanging out with you guys on the stream, and I hope you guys feel it too, is I know my opinions are going to be different from yours. Yours are going to be different from mine. But I want you guys all to know, at least for this area, these 3 hours here in our sphere, I'm not judging you guys. You guys all like what you like. I like what we like. And that's what I love having you guys here for, that we can talk about it. You can critique it with me. And that gets me to go sometimes like, okay, yeah, you're right. Or sometimes I go, no, let's explain it. But it's all good. So I'm happy, Tevya. I'm really glad. I'm really glad for that. Oh my God, Tevya, Grant Morrison on Spider, I might cry. Like, more Mavlor, Grant Morrison is my favorite writer. Yes, he can get a little out there sometimes, but the man knows how to write like comic book universes and lore and make it all work together in a really respectful way. Like, the man knows his like deep cut comic books, and he'll bring back something from the 40s and make it work. And be like, and you won't go like, oh, that's so weird. Like, he could take a character from the 40s that's like, Jingle Bell Gardener Man. He goes around the neighborhood every day watering everybody's plants to make sure that, to make sure they're fed, and he's coming because he jingles. Ran for like 6 issues, right? Back in 1941. Grant Morrison would bring that back, and it would be like, that character would be pivotal to the next crisis, and it would work. You would be like, oh, damn, no, he needs to garden more. So I love Grant Morrison to death. Now we get into the fun part where my rage is really going to let out. So, next story is up. We get Patrick Gleason his back, who I think is a really good artist in general. I just like his art. I think it's really good and action-y for a Spider-Man. But, yay! Look! Chasm's here! Oh, boy! So, in this story, we have Chasm coming back and wanting to have a chat with Ben. And, all right, guys. I might jump around here a little bit because the closer we get to the end of this particular epilogue, the more I will get mad, and you will see why. So, Ben approaches Peter, helps him take out Bushwhacker. Cool, says Peter. You want to talk for a second? They go and they get dinner or whatever. And, they have this awkward talk, like, I thought my cure was to kill you. And it's like, yeah, that would have been bad. Sure. And it's very awkward, but then they sort of catch up. He sort of tells, they talk a little bit. To Wells's credit, it does very much feel like a natural dialogue cadence between two people who are awkward, but obviously have something like big to talk about, right? Like if I was hanging out with Zero over there, and I was like, hey Zero, can I talk to you? Like, can you meet me for lunch? I have something I need to talk to you about. We would go into the diner or whatever. We'd sit down. Maybe for the first 20 minutes, it's like, oh, hey man, like you look great. Like, how's it going? How's your mom? How's your friends? Oh, did you ever beat that game or whatever? Oh yeah, no, it's great. Oh yeah, I'm doing well. Like, small talk, but very I'm doing small talk, but I also am trying very hard not to broach certain topics. Small talk. Like it's a dance. We've all been there. But I'll give Wells credit that this is what he's doing, because that definitely comes across. But this is where I get pissed, because right here at the bottom, we get Ben going, I've been talking to Janine about it a lot. I'm not obsessed with you anymore, Peter. I'm ready to move on. I need to find my own life. I need space from you to do it. I'm asking for a ceasefire. Now, yes, this is literally just what happened when Peter came back into the webs, right? Back in the 90s after Ben was in his, we all know the Spectacular Ben run when he had that cool alternate costume, and it was the 90s, and then Peter comes back and they discover that Ben's the real clone. Yeah. I don't need to do a Clone Saga retrospective. But this is literally what happens like 7 times during that run. It's like, I know we're Peter, but I need some time on my own. I need to figure this out for myself. And Ben goes somewhere, and then they team up. So I'm not jazzed at seeing like, oh, okay, we've been here before. But there is still just that base primal level where I'm like, thank God, at least you are leaving this book and you're giving us Ben back. You can take your bullshit chasm idea and never bring it back again. At least, or at the very least, you're getting over this stupid, like, I'm obsessed with Peter, I need my life. Like, at least you're setting up Ben, at least in this moment, on the path to becoming Scarlet again, to being Ben again. He admittedly, even if what happens next didn't happen, he would still be Chasm for a little while, but at least it would be a different Chasm who wasn't the edgy, oh yeah, screw you guys, I'm so cool, Peter sucks sort of dude. So I was like, right here, I'm reading this page and I'm like, oh my God, we might get out of this. I might get my boy back. And yeah, they agree to it. Like, you're welcome. I'm rooting for you. Thank you. And then we get down here and Ben just says, a funny thing happens when you find out your life is a lie. More lies don't seem like that big of a deal. Told Peter 3 Whoppers today. I wasn't looking for Bushwhacker. I was looking for him. I told him it'd be bad if he was gone when a part of me wants nothing more. And then there was the biggest fib of all. He asked if I'm for real. And I said yes. We both know I'm not real, Peter. My life is a shadow. You live in the light. So I watch. Watch and wait for my chance to take it all back. Wells literally set up a Ben redemption and then fucking tripled down on Ben being not just evil, but like Peter obsessed. Again, I don't know how. Someday, guys, someday I will have the time to sit down and finish. I've got like the script out. It just needs to be recorded and edited and all that stuff. But a full history breakdown of why Wells does not understand who Chasm is and his character. And obviously I told you right there, like, we've been through the song and dance of I Need Space a zillion times. But this shit right here, page before. A funny thing happens when you find out your life is a lie. Ben has known he's a fucking clone for ages. This is not news to him. Even when he lost his memories over at Beyond, he doesn't forget that he's a clone. Like, he knows that. So when you spent the entire Clone Saga resolving Ben to the point where he accepted, I'm not Peter, or like, I am Peter, but I'm not Peter, I need to go be myself. And there are runs where he goes out and lives his life. He meets Janine. He goes to like California for a little bit. Guys, literally, right before Zeb Wells came on to Amazing Spider-Man, there is an Iron Man run. I believe it is still the current volume, or, well, Iron Man just rolled over, but the Invincible Iron Man volume, the one with the Emma marriage and stuff that I always praise, I think it's part of that run. But in the beginnings of that run, Tony needs help to, here, I can actually pull it up because that's why I made this setup, so we can have pretty pictures and things for us to look at. Yay! So I'm just gonna look for it real quick while I check in with the chat. Oh yeah, no, this Ben Reilly story is just, it's not, I wouldn't even say, like, that feels nice to me. Bad and garbage. This feels insulting, like, directly coming into my house and pissing all over my shoes and saying, I hope you die. Like, it is awful. So, okay, this is like as good of a shot as I'm probably going to get of this. So, in Invincible Iron Man, right before, Wells came on to Amazing Spider-Man, there was a storyline where Tony needed help taking out Michael Korvac. Like, if you guys don't remember, Michael Korvac is just this pure energy enemy who has tormented the Avengers for a long time. His most recent, like, big bad thing was, if you guys recall, the when House of M happened, it was revealed that Wanda didn't remove anybody's powers. She just sort of took the mutant energy and flung it into space, and then it melded with Korvac and made him even more powerful. So during this run, Tony needed help to take down Korvac. So he goes and he tries to assemble He's sort of on the outs, like with all of the Orchi stuff happening, so he doesn't have all of his resources. So he's like, I got to contact whoever I can. So he puts out like an SOS signal, right? And when in doing so, he gets responses from, I forget who the dude on the left is. I think he's like a new character, but Misty Knight, Gray Gargoyle, Frog, like the human frog, War Machine, and oh, who the hell is that standing right there in the middle? It's Ben. So and did I say Misty? I should have said Misty, but Misty as well. So in this run, Ben is like, his whole thing, he gets contacted by Tony and he's like, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out my life. Like, I'm working as a security guard. It's not fulfilling, but I can't really live in New York. So I'm just sort of figuring things out. He was not like decrepit. He was not broken. He was not like, who am I? Wah. So Wells is not like, it's not even that he's not doing anything original. It's that he's acting like the thing that has been done zillions of times before is groundbreaking, is something that's really going to entice us all. When in reality, all he's done is just take a character and go, I'm going to treat him this way, and you can all sort of deal with it. And I don't really care. Yeah, that was the last time he was Scarlet. It makes me so sad. We'll never see it again. But so that is the resolution to Chasm. Zeb Wells goes, look, Ben. Nope, Chasm still, deal with it. And so nobody knows what's going to happen with him right now. There's no solicits that talk about him coming up in any book. So stick on this channel if you want to hear more Ben Reilly outrage, because it is definitely coming. Especially just this shit. Just no. So anyway, we then get this story is actually not written by Zeb Wells. It is written by Joe Kelly, who is taking over for the Eight Lives of Spider-Man storyline that's coming up. Basically, it is just a setup to that story where it shows Spider-Man stopping a villain from crashing the world's financial system, but in doing so, he uses his brain and his tech, and it's sort of just a story of Doom watching him and sort of narrating like, yes, he's annoying, but there's no greater champion, no stronger, no more intelligent, no more selfless. And then, yeah, it just ends with him going like, I will choose him as my champion. And this is going to lead into the Eight Lives of Spider-Man storyline, which is coming up, which it looks to be, I have not really kept up with the previews and teases of Eight Lives of Spider-Man, but it's looking like it's going to be a sort of in-between run that deals with Spider-Man sort of reality hopping or dimension hopping between different lives, courtesy of the chromatic guy we saw earlier. So not really a lot to say about this one. It's a nice story. It's a good setup. We'll see where Joe Kelly goes with it. But yeah, guys, with that, we have finally hit the end of Zeb Wells' run. We can look forward to Joe Kelly, who I'm a big fan of Joe Kelly's writing, have been ever since he handled Deadpool back in Volume 2 and made Deadpool the character we sort of know and love to this day. So I'm excited to see what he does next. Anything at this point is going to be better than what we got with Wells, which was just a run full of fart huffing, of being contrarian, of just antagonizing fans. None of this run feels good. I mean, if I have to, compliment some things, shout out to my boy Ed McGuinness, an amazing artist. I like Patrick Gleason's art as well. Anytime they showed up, there was always good art to look at. You guys know that. When the Goblin Who Laughed story was going, that was all Ed McGuinness, and you guys might remember how much I praised that art. Aside from that, this is going to go down like, okay, we all know One More Day. But One More Day was sort of a one editor thing. It was yes, it is probably the worst creative decision ever to happen in Spider-Man in probably the last 60, 70, 80 years, whatever. But at the very least, it was 4 issues. And then, yes, Dan Slott came in and it was time for him to pick up the pieces. And he did, his brand new day run is, there's stinkers, but there's also some winners in there. I'm a big fan personally of the American Sun storyline where Norman tried to get Harry to wear the Iron Patriot armor and break bad. So there's moments there, but it wasn't a run. Yes, we're still dealing with the aftermath of it and it will never go away, but at least it was like Joey Q came in, did his 4 issues and was like, okay, bye. Wells stuck around for 2 years, constantly handling everything or sorry, 2 years in charge of all mainline Spider-Man stuff. If you were doing a thing with Spider-Man, you had to talk to him. And in that, he just showed that there was no interest in really engaging with the character so much as he was interested in antagonizing and making you guys have something to talk about. And it's just, I'm tired of that. I'm tired of people trying to reinvent the wheel, leave their mark by doing all these crazy over-the-top things when it's like, why don't we like reconnect with fundamentals? Why don't we reconnect with who these characters are? Give us more of that instead of trying to impress us with a twist at every turn. That's what this run is. It's twist after twist after twist for no payoff, for no real resolution. The only thing that happens is that Peter ends up sadder and sadder after all of them. So, yeah, here at the end of, oh, wow. It's probably, we should probably wrap up the show. We are hitting that 2.5 hour mark, which is what YouTube likes from us. So yeah, guys, at the end here, really all I have to say is goodbye and good riddance to Zeb Wells. Please don't give him another main character book for a while until he proves that he is more interested in working on that character and enjoying and writing that character than just shocking audiences. And yeah, guys, do not pick up this run. There is not a single issue I can even recommend where it's like, oh, at least this one's neat. At least there's something here. So if you are somebody like freaking Punk, who managed to avoid all of this for the entire run, all the more power to you. All I can say for the rest of us that had to endure this is at least we got out of this. Maybe if I use the word resolve, that was probably just a synonymous word. It wraps up everything, but yes, it doesn't resolve anything. It kind of just establishes that all of Zeb Wells' concepts are still in play and are still the status quo. Paul and MJ, Chasm, all of that garbage is still here. So yeah, maybe resolve was probably too, maybe not the right word choice. So yeah, you're right. You're right, Tevye. Don't worry. But yeah, there was a question that I wanted to get to. Who was it? Yes, it was Tehillim. Tehillim says, Kabuto, DC and Marvel need to get rid of self-insert characters. It ages as bad as politicians in comics. Now, I'm not sure where this point came from, but I do want to address it because it was a question asked. Nobody in this story, nobody in Zeb Wells' run here is a self-insert. Like I like just at the top, because that's the transitory topic. I don't see that. I've never read anything like that. That doesn't seem the point. Now, self-insert characters are not inherently bad writing. The problem is when you write the self-insert as a self-insert instead of as a character. There are lots of fiction out there where people are like, oh yeah, I wrote that from my perspective. I wrote that if it was me. Or, I for example, Peach Momoko doing Ultimate X-Men, she gave an interview before it started where she was like, oh yeah, I'm drawing on a lot of my experiences as a Japanese high schooler for Mayday, for Hasuko. So like, that's not necessarily a bad thing. The problem becomes when they start writing the character as themselves, and it, like Mariko Tamaki in I Am Not Starfire. The Starfire's daughter is clearly her because that character is framed as the bestest and they're all right and you're all supposed to be sympathetic for them with no flaws. So, I mean, it always depends on how you can write a character. I've sort of been touching on that throughout this entire stream. You get dealt your cards. Good writers can sometimes recover from it. Bad writers almost never can. But I would just sort of, I wish I could give a blanket statement where it's like, I want all politicians or like all self-inserts gone, or I want all of this type of character gone. But the problem is it's so variable that my problem really is just, we need to vet and really put standards back into our hiring process for comic book writing, right? We need to get people who actually care about the material, who like comic books, like the community, have been a part of it, understand how to interact with fans without just, going at them and antagonizing them. And also people who just, again, understand story is not just twist after twist to subvert your expectations. At the end of the day, that's what this run was. Zeb Wells is the amazing subvert your expectations Spider-Man. Because, oh, you thought MJ and Peter getting together? Nah, it's not happening. Oh, you thought Ben was going to be a good guy again? That's not happening. Oh, you thought, Kamala Khan's going to play a big part in this entire story? That's not happening. Like, it's all of that. So it really just comes down to skill. And so, yeah, I really just want a quality standard return to the industry. And until that happens, it really doesn't matter if you say no self-insert characters, because the writing is just going to be bad in general. I mean, Zeb Wells didn't self-insert, and look what happened to Peter, to MJ, to Ben. Everybody got destroyed. So it really, to me, I get what you're saying, and you're right that 98% of the time when somebody goes, I'm self-inserting, it ends up terrible. But it really does boil down to, are you a good writer or not? And coming out of DC and Marvel, the answer is an emphatic, not really. There's like a handful of writers that I think we can all really like. Like there's Mark Waid, again, certified crazy person, knows how to write comics. Jonathan Hickman's doing well. Surprisingly, Gail Simone is killing it over there on Uncanny X-Men. Oh my God, what's his name? Snyder over there is rocking it on Absolute Batman. So there's talent there, but it's just, we need more, you can't just hire anybody who says, I want to write a comic book. Let's start hiring people who are like, oh yeah, you are a comic book writer. You're not a script writer. You're not a TV person. You're not a movie person. You like comic books. We want somebody from the world of comic books. And I just think that that's where we need to sort of reset everything, set that standard, and then we can talk about like where are we hiring forward and sort of all that some stuff. Yeah, Tevya, let's hope someone at Marvel could retcon all of this crap out of existence. Let's hope Paul disappears really soon. I've been saying for years that I'm so done with Chasm that even if Ben showed up tomorrow just in the Scarlet Spider suit, no explanation, just nothing, you don't even address it, I would be fine with it. Like, it's bad writing, but I would just be fine with it because at least we're done. We are done with Chasm. Yep, exactly. We need to give it all those jerks at Marvel, and Nick Lowe needs to go away. That's another thing, right, Tevya? The editorial is somebody we also need to focus our attentions on, because a lot of these decisions are from them or supported by them. And a good editor should be able to sit down and be like, I don't know, Wells, I see what you're doing here, but let's talk about this. How do we make this idea better? Instead of going, oh yeah, man, that'll piss them off. Go for it, right? Which is just awful. So yeah, guys, with that, I think that's an awesome place for us to call it for tonight. I thank you all for, wrong thing. Oh no, I hit the wrong button. I thank you guys all for hanging out with me, not just tonight for this breakdown of issue 60, but for enduring all the past 48 episodes of me complaining about this run. It was wild. It was fun. We're finally out of there. I know, opinions are varied on whether or not Joe Kelly can do anything with Spider-Man going forward. We will see. I'm at least partially optimistic, and I think that is at least a better spot than knowing a Zeb Wells issue is coming out next week. So with that, guys, as always, you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, follow me down here so that, same Mav time, same Mav channel next week for another episode of Good Mav Ugly. If you want to see me before then, Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific time, I am over on the 01 stream at Bounding Into Comics, where I hang out with Cider, Jacob, and Nerdigans, and we break down the big news of the week. I am also over there on Thursday nights on Foil Variant with Andrew. That show is at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Me and him, you guys know him, you love him, Caffeinated Wolf, Rippaverse, you're like 700 rolls at the Rippaverse, so I don't want to get the wrong one. But he and I, we talk out, we go in depth about the new releases of the week, and we have back and forth. So if you want more of a conversation, that's where you can check it out. And then also, if I have the time on Thursdays afterwards, you can find me over on Tooneytown TV with my good friend Marvin the Movie Monster. That's just variable as to whenever I'm done with Foil Variant. And then yeah, check out boundingintocomics.com every day for new news stories where we are posting things up. Go check out the YouTube. Go check out everybody around here. I know people got channels. Go see Tehillim. Go see Zero. Thank you all for hanging out. From Zero to Vecchia. I'm like mixing up both your first and last name. From Tevya to Shinkai to Andrew to Duck to Corey to Punk to gosh, who am I missing here? I don't want to miss anybody. We're going to scroll back up. Oh yeah, we had Leon in here. We had Volume Dealer. You guys, I couldn't be doing this show without you. It's your viewership that allows me to keep coming back here every Friday and hang out with you guys. I hope you have as much fun as I do because this is a highlight of the week. So with that, go have an amazing weekend. Go play some video games that you like. Go read some comic books that are good. Do not read anything that has Zeb Wells' name on it from this Amazing Spider-Man run. If you have to, go read that one-shot story from the Amazing Spider-Man Big Time event. And until then, guys, I'll see you next week. So take it easy. And out of here.
As the creator of Mara Jade,
Wait! I am not the creator of Mara Jade, and I want you to get out of this office right now.
I'm sorry, Zeb.
No way.
You brought
No
it on
way.
You brought it on yourself.
I don't want you here.
I'm so
Out.
sorry, George. I didn't think it would go like this.
Out.
Ted, I got your voucher.
Out! There.
I'm sorry about that. I'm so sorry. We'll have him like burned and
I don't even know who that guy is.